Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лафтем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у щах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Ті, хто води всяке озброєння, різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Street Army sends its regards.
everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt. Welcome back to day 308 of the news, and I hope you all had a Merry Christmas. We had a pretty good one, minus one little incident, but it's good to be back.
And of course, we're going to be reporting not on the past, I think at this point it would be over 100 hours of the war in Ukraine. We're only going to be reporting on the past 24, and we will reference what's been happening over the past few days throughout tonight's news. Of course, we've been gone for 3 whole days, the longest channel break that has ever been taken on this channel ever since the very start of this war. I believe the longest one before this was 2 days. So we're talking about like this was the longest one, and I'm glad to be back. Honestly, last night I started feeling kind of weird because one, we'll probably get to that in the question segment about what happened here on Christmas Eve, just during the middle of us filming the Christmas address. But beyond that, it was really weird not to run this news. But I hope y'all enjoyed the Christmas address. I hope y'all enjoyed y'all's Christmas as well. And now it's time for us to get right into the news. And before we even get to any of the stuff I've been putting down on the map to show for today's news, we have to go over a trend that we're seeing in between Kreminna and Svatove right now. So let's back up to the 24th, which is the last day we were on air, and let's go from the 24th to the 25th, and when you see the Ukrainians made some ground right there, the 26th, the Russians moved back forward, and the 27th, which is today, and it appears that there is a counterattack that is currently underway in the Luhansk area, although we don't have a lot of video evidence to report on it, or anything to show about it for the large part, but it seems to be that a lot of Ukrainian forces are going to be pushing this area as of right now, or they have been in the process of doing this for a couple of days. It appears to be small in scope just because of the size of the ground that they've taken so far, and we do know that Ukrainian tactics, at least offensive tactics whenever used, are usually foolproof against any kind of Russian defenses. They're usually able to punch through, create a breakthrough, and then exploit it and take a large amount of ground whenever they launch a proper one. So it appears that this one is small in aim. It may be something leading up to the capture of Kreminna, although we're not entirely sure right now. We're just going to have to wait for a couple of more days to develop to see whether this is a very small-scale counterattack or if this is a larger counterattack that's part of a large offensive plan in this area. Still, very interesting to see, and we're going to be moving on to the video footage that we've gotten here, which is, of course, very small, I have to say. But we did see a new Ukrainian suicide drone in action. And I gotta tell y'all, this thing was pretty interesting. Of course, we gotta mute the music because of copyright. But we can see here the Russian column moving down the road. We can now see some white smoke. And we can see some explosions near to the vehicles. We're assuming that these are the kamikaze drones hitting these vehicles one after another. And they are going up. It looks like we may have gotten a turret toss right there. And we can now see one of these little kamikaze drones flying around. It looks like it's found its target. It's going right in for... Oh, that was a dugout, Matthew. That was a hole-in-one right there. Call this drone Tiger Woods because that thing sunk the shot. Look at that. Goodness. Moving on to the next video, we can see another one flying straight into a BMP-2. And we can actually see some guys, some very unfortunate guys who just found out that becoming a Mobic wasn't really the best thing. You can see him right there. Wait a minute, hang on. Right there. They all just found out, well, my job in the Russian army is over.
Can you see it through the watermark?
No, hardly. We can now see another one ramming into a BMP-1. We can now see what appears to be another BMP moving into this field of dead BMPs and getting hit as well. You know, I just don't understand. I gotta say this, Mandy. I have no idea. I don't understand. Why is it that when Russians see 2 dead armored personnel carriers in the same spot, they always just drive another one in there? Like, they're like, oh, if it didn't work the first 2 times, it's got to work this time.
Yeah, they can't identify like a dead tank to save their life, apparently. Oh, they found out. They became the 3rd.
We found out. Yeah! Anyways, I can't sing. I'm sorry, everyone. I just burst y'all's eardrums out. We can now see this one going for a BMP-1 again. They actually did a slow-mo reverse on that one. This is the NFL play of the game right here. It looks like it hit directly onto the engine bay, knocking out the tank. Well, the APC. We can now see this one coming up on... Oh.
He didn't get it. Fatal mistake.
So, this one right here is coming up on a BMP-1, and it appears that it has crew members on top of it, and also the rear doors are wide open. So let's see how this goes. It looks like he's trying to shoot at it, but oh, wait a minute. The pilot didn't fly it inside the tank. He pulled up and hit the guy on top. And here we go, once again, with the slow-mo replay. As we can see, the drone hit the 4th and 9 and hit right on the tank.
Man.
Oh, man. Those guys are having a bad day. In fact, I think their day is over. But we can now see here the Ukrainians firing a javelin onto these Russian vehicles. A little bit of a breakaway from all of the drone footage we've been seeing so far. And I've just got to wonder, Matthew, when is beyond the turret toss, when is Russia going to be running out of White Lotus? It's got to be happening soon.
Well, remember, they're out. That's why they're giving out waterpark tickets.
I forgot. We already covered that the last time we were on stream.
It's only been 3 days.
It's only been 3 days, and they're already out of them. They were out of them before, now they're really out of them. And with that, that's the end of that video. But once again, giving you a little bit of a glimpse as to how the Ukrainians are using drones as much as they can. I believe they're starting to use drones in every applicable purpose possible. They're getting in the process, the British are in the process of making a medical evacuation drone that will probably be used here soon in the war. They're currently using them for anti-tank purposes, anti-personnel purposes, and reconnaissance. They're using them for everything. I can't think of a purpose that a drone hasn't been used for in this war yet by the Ukrainians, and it looks like they're really starting to use them up in this area where the current small offensive is going on right now. Moving on to the next bit of news, we also saw a Russian position in this area getting shelled. But you see that it's been pot-marked before. Oh, that sounds like music.
What in the world?
Well, you see the grad barrage landing on these Russian positions, and it appears that the Russians have actually been hit in one form or another, and are now having to take to their legs to leave the area. We can now see more artillery coming down on the position. Some very accurate fire, I'd have to say. We now see the Russians running for the hills, or in Ukraine, running for the fields. Oh, man. Matthew, I can't get over it anymore. I gotta say this, I just gotta be honest with you. Where in the world do the Russians run? There's no cover anywhere in Ukraine. Like, they get out of the tank and they go, scram! And they just start running into the horizon, but you can see them for 25 miles of their run.
Honestly, they're kind of screwed. They really have nowhere to go.
Yeah, they're just screwed. Like, that's one thing I never get about the Russians running, is that no matter how far they run, they can't get out of range of artillery, nor can they get out of range of the drones. Once their vehicle is hit, wherever it's hit in these fields, the crew may as well already just give up or surrender or something similar. Because unless if they're wanting to run through what seems to be the European version of Kansas, until they just drop dead from exhaustion, there is no way to break the line of sight with the Ukrainians in most of the country, like up here in the Kreminna area. It's just impossible. It's just ridiculous. And we can see that they're now peppering that crew with a grad barrage. The only thing they're missing now is a little bit of salt. And I'm sure they got plenty of that. And with that, that's the end of the video. But once again, showing you the plight of the Russians as they do their normal stupid crap and end up paying the price for it. Moving on into our next bit of news in the Kreminna area, closest to Kreminna we've ever found so far today, we saw the Ukrainians using an SPG-9 once again for some indirect fire. But we gotta mute that because that music is loud, and not only that, the guy who has that, I know he's content ID'd that. I got content ID'd for the song in the first 10 days of the war. We can now see them all getting ready to fire the SPG-9. Sadly, we won't be able to hear it, but I can do it.
Shoom.
Shoom. And when you see these guys are not using the improvised mortar rounds that the Chechen Mansur Battalion was using in Bakhmut. They have the proper SPG-9 rounds that were actually made for the SPG-9. When you see them firing it again. And reloading. And that's the end of the video, but Once again, really nice to see that the Ukrainians are using the SPG-9s in this area, most likely for some kind of a supporting fire for one of their offensives, and hopefully it is hitting the Russian forces accurately, so that way it's knocking out or suppressing them so the Ukrainian infantry and the armor that's supporting them can advance. Speaking of Russians, considering that we're always talking about Russians getting obliterated, a lot of y'all may be wondering, why are the Russians always so vehement about this whole death cult thing? You know, it's almost like it's become a religion for them to want to go to Ukraine and not end up fighting and winning, but just dying on the front lines as a soldier. It seems like that's really become the ambition of at least the Russian government, and whether the citizens back that up is another question. For the large part, we've seen that younger generations don't, but older ones do. But we have an answer today, because we found video from inside of Russia that showed a guy from the Moscow Patriarchy of the Eastern Orthodox Church explaining why you should go to Ukraine and die. It's Here, I'm just going to show you the video. I don't even have to tell y'all it's unbelievable. Y'all will know it's unbelievable. It's also got subtitles, so I'm going to let this guy just dig his own grave here on stream. So here's the video.
Воинская смерть лучше всех смертей. Это лучшая смерть из смертей. Люди умирают, как свиньи, захлебываются блевотиной, скажу я вам. Еле-еле пили-пили, перепили, под столы попадали, как бы, знаешь, обрыгались, как бы, и блевотиной захлебнулись. Вот тебе и смерть. А потом малолетки-зацеперы там поехали там зацепиться за электричку, там покататься, его током шваркнуло 3000 вольт, как бы, и он обугленный на рельсы упал, а ему лет было 17. Пошли фотку сделать, селфи какую-нибудь на крышу дома. Подскользнулись и полетели с 15-го этажа вместе с телефоном. Сделали селфи. Таких дурацких смертей, так лучше с оружием в руках умереть за родину. Как герой, как мужчина. Еще помолиться перед смертью, сказать, Господи помилуй, и пошел.
Don't drink yourself to death and choke on your own vomit, and don't fall off a balcony while trying to take a selfie. Instead, join the Russian army, because you're guaranteed to die, but you'll die with a weapon in your hand instead of a phone. That is the stupidest line of reasoning I ever heard. Instead of sitting there and saying, hey kids, listen, you know, it's not a good thing to get dog drunk. You know, alcoholism's a big problem over here. Also, don't do stupid stuff for vanity. Don't do anything like that. Just use some common sense. Instead, death is inevitable, kids. If you're going to die.
Here's a question: as a Russian soldier, is living an option anymore?
Apparently not. In Russia, they've taken like the cynicist mindset that no one will survive. Everyone's going to die in this war, but it's better to die with a weapon in your hand than die at home from like old age or something. Go out there and get yourself killed, young man. Go on. Like, and also, isn't this insane? Like, not to talk about this too much, but isn't this insane that a guy wearing garbs of pretty much the Russian church is in church, and instead of like telling you some kind of a moral story like you'd usually find here in America in a church, he's going to tell you, go and die for the government. Like, you know, I don't really get it. And I don't even get how this really ties into the whole thing of being in church, because nothing with this had to do with anything rather than dying for the state. I don't get it. I really don't get this at all. It doesn't make any sense. And also, if this guy is so adamant, we already know that guys his age are getting conscripted into the military. Why doesn't he go join? Probably because he has some kind of religious exemption. In Russia, they actually get that, if you didn't know that, Matthew.
Yeah, I definitely didn't know that.
Yeah, and
is that a thing?
It is. And did you know something else? A YouTuber in Russia got put in prison. The guy was like 19 years old. He was younger than you and me. About 3 years ago, he got put in prison for taking a selfie in a Russian Orthodox church, because that was technically considered by Russian law defacing the Orthodoxy, and he got put in prison for 5 years.
So you can't take a selfie in their church, but you can repeat these disgusting things that this guy's saying in the middle of the church.
Yeah, you can't take a selfie, man. It's blasphemy. Blasphemy, my boy. But you can sit here and record this guy telling you to die weapons in hand for the motherland, and that's okay. That doesn't make any sense. And this is the kind of stupidity that is leading some Russian soldiers, to some volunteers, to join the military and go over there pretty much with the sole intent to die now. It's not even to win. It's just to get yourself killed. And I got to be honest with you, that's probably a good reason why the Russians are losing this war. Because instead of focusing on winning it, they're focusing on dying in it. They ought to be focused on winning it. Maybe they would actually get somewhere if they did that. But instead, they're so focused on losing and dying in it for some kind of like a martyrdom. It's just stupid. We're going to be moving on from this. There's not much more to add to it. And we're going to be moving down to Ryazan because we actually saw that an old man, a 70-year-old man, actually tried to stand up to, I guess you could say, the government of Russia in a small way, and he took a Molotov cocktail and tried to set the enlistment office on fire in front of the cops. You can see he's moving around the outside of the building. He's now setting down his goods. The bag is now in place. I repeat, he has the bag. The cops come immediately. And now the old man is like, I was doing nothing. I just have this kerosene can, and I was just going for an evening. Oh, he caught it on fire! Right in front of the cops. Man, that guy's got balls. He was like, excuse me, officer. Pick some kerosene can. I was just setting the enlistment office on fire. Don't mind me. That guy's actually got a lot of balls. I thought for a second, because I'd only seen the first part of the clip, like the first 20 seconds of it, I thought that at this point, the cops are going to get out and mob him, but instead, sit there and watch the guy catch the whole thing on fire. Oh, man.
The police said, why are you setting that fire, Ivan? He said, I'm trying to get warm. They said, oh, it's fine.
They said, why are you setting fire? I thought those Western people were eating their hamsters. Shouldn't they be setting the fire instead? Oh, man.
Or they're scared to get out, and they asked him, what are you doing, comrade? And he turned around and said, Igor.
Igor! The spirit of Igor compels you to burn down your local enlistment office. Oh, man. What a video. And I gotta give a lot of credit to the 70-year-old guy. He's definitely going against the grain in Russia with most old people supporting this war. He's definitely a guy who doesn't. Otherwise, he wouldn't be burning down the enlistment office. And so with that, can we get an Igor in the live chat? Because this guy definitely gets the Igor award. With that, we're going to be moving on to our last clip in Russia, because we can only stay in Russia for so long, and luckily enough, I don't have any propaganda flicks to show y'all today. I know that a lot of people enjoy us pissing on them. A lot of people also kind of get miffed at the stupidity that you just hear even listening to them, and we don't have any of those today. I can guarantee y'all that. But one thing we do have is Vladimir Putin on the phone in a completely unprompted call, man. He just called up 1-800 8-year-old girl now in the middle of Zaporizhia and got an 8-year-old girl on the phone supposedly and was talking to her about how the cucumbers are growing. It was the stupidest thing ever. And let me pull up this. When do cucumbers grow? Let's see. Cucumbers, let's see here. What month are cucumbers ready? I just need a quick answer.
Can we get a straight answer?
When do cucumbers harvest? Are you kidding me? Is there not a straight up answer for this?
It's a trade secret.
It's a trade secret. The cucumber growers, the big cucumber does not want you to know when the harvest season for a cucumber is. We can't find it. I would assume that cucumbers are not to be harvested in the middle of winter. I feel like it's not.
Also, Susie Halsey said in the spring.
May through August. You plant the cucumbers in May, harvest them in August. He is calling in the middle of December, asking this girl about the cucumbers in her garden. That's how fake Russian propaganda is that they can't even get the right freaking vegetable down to talk about. Oh my! You know, this is how I sound when anyone's giving me a shopping list that I have to pick up for them outside of the house.
Or when you have no clue what's being said.
Yeah. So an FSB agent's on the other side of the phone. You'll now go and Putin goes
Чаем угощали? Баранки какие-нибудь, печенье. Вкусно? Вкусно все было?
Also, Matthew, notice how much the frame is shaking around because this cameraman is on the other side of the Kremlin looking through a window on max zoom at Putin right now, and he's got a little lapel mic on so that way no one kills him. Like, they're like 500 yards.
That's true, actually.
Yeah, they're 500 yards away from him.
Пожалуйста, Сашенька. Маме с папой передавай привет. Пришлешь мне тоже. Я знаю, вы выращиваете там огурцы, помидоры. Огурчиков пришлешь? Да, буду ждать от тебя тоже подарок новогодний. Ладно?
That sounds so stupid. In the middle of this war, you know, it's like, you know, if this was Zelensky, to compare, Zelensky would have just gone there, you know? He would have been like, hey, how are you doing? Putin's got to come up with a fake phone call from Zaporizhia. You know, this is just stupid at this point. They're trying to feed the public propaganda, and it's just so fake. It's so sad. You can't even believe, it's not even close to believable. It's pitiful. We got to move on from Russia. I can't look at Russia anymore. It's sad. It's pitiful. We'll be back tomorrow on Russia. But anyways, moving on down back into Ukraine, we have gotten a very interesting look behind the lines because it appears that while Kupiansk is a decent ways away from any direction, either the Russian border or the front line, it appears that artillery fire is still hitting the town of Kupiansk, and because of it, Polish volunteers are currently in the town evacuating some of the citizens who are finding themselves under fire. And so here's a short video of them evacuating some of these citizens behind the lines and doing some incredible work that doesn't really get covered much. This isn't brave fighting on the front lines, massive gunfights, massive artillery barrages, offensives, defensives, and such things. This is work that soldiers do when they get rotated off of the front lines and they just have to help out. And so here's a video of them helping to evacuate this old lady and a couple of other people, I believe.
Скажіть, щас я... А тоді хтось до мене зайдіть, я кицю замотаю. Ладно? Візьміть мені ж кицю на руки.
She's got that cat wrapped up like a baby.
Я щас обуюся. Отак от, вона ще мордується трошки. Щас я бігом одіваюся.
Oh, that thing's cute.
Колечна, заходьте. Заходьте, заходьте. Ой, носом вже на цей, господи. Дуже хрома з одною ногою. Мальчики, ну ви мені кішку понесете, бо вона важуча. Це син з Харкова привіз із-під бомбежок. Саме, значить, это уїхали давним-давно, як ото почалося. А мені це чудо оставили. Представте. Диви, як вона сидить на руках, таке ж уже катиха. Така ж уже Катя. Ух, хоча б ж Наташа позвонила мені. Я вже ж їй сказала, щоб вже ж там на квартиру. У мене ж ні ключа там немає. Я без поняття, куди це до мене будете вести.
Це кудись довезе.
Владислава Зубенко.
That's gotta be the calmest cat I've ever seen. Also, Matthew, another thing, I was just thinking this. A Russian watching this video right now is going, "But I'm very confused. Why has she not eaten her cat?"
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Poor cat. It's probably seen too much is why it's so calm.
I don't know. Maybe so. Maybe it's gotten terrorized by the sound of artillery fire in the town. Who really knows? But that is a calm cat, and it's really nice to see. It actually looks like I may have gotten this wrong. It appears that he may be wearing a firefighter's uniform instead, and it may be a Polish volunteer firefighter in the area of Kupiansk that is helping to evacuate the citizens. Regardless, it is a Polish volunteer, and whether it be a frontline soldier or, I guess you could say, reserve units, because the firefighters are somewhat of a reserve unit at the moment, although they don't really get involved in any firefights much, but they are involved on the front lines if need be. Regardless, the Polish have been there every step of the way for the Ukrainians. I would say that the Polish have been backing the Ukrainians before anyone else in this war, even the United States, and they get a lot of credit for that, and they deserve a whole bunch of praise for it. The Polish were the first to step up to the plate to start providing Ukraine with any kind of aid. They were the one pioneering the idea of international aid, not just from the European Union, but also from the U.S. You got to give Polish people and their nation a whole load of credit for that, because if it wasn't without the Polish, foreign support may have never existed the way it does now. And they're a huge part of why Ukraine probably still stands to this day in terms of foreign support. With that, we're now going to be moving on from this rear line video, and once again, huge credit to the undergoing evacuation efforts that Ukrainians are always undertaking, and hopefully they take them to a nice place like Dnipro or even further west in the country. But moving on to our location unknowns, we have a couple of interesting things to show here. Starting off with our first clip, we actually saw that a Russian got hit by a Ukrainian sniper. And as you all know, snipers are starting to become a lot more common, especially over the past month and a half in the Ukraine war. It appears that Ukrainian soldiers are now getting trained at some kind of a marksman school, or the snipers that they already had that had been well trained were being held in some kind of reserve, as this footage did not come out in the earlier parts of the war at all, and we've only seen this come about in the past 3 months or so. And so it's very interesting to see. We don't really know the explanation of why there are so many Ukrainian snipers now, but this guy is pretty freaking effective. I'll let y'all see, because he makes the story for himself. When you see him looking around, and we can kind of see a faint glimmer of light in the distance, showing that there's some heat out there. And lo and behold, lo and behold, oh my goodness. Thank you, Jeremy. We'll get to that in a bit. But why in the world can I not do, whatchamacallit, David Attenborough tonight? I don't know.
You've gotten out of practice. You're rusty.
Yes, I have. You see, that's why I have to do the voices every day and harass y'all with them, is because if I don't, you know, I just lose them. But we can see the Russian peek up, and down he goes. Back into the darkness of the night. The sniper got him. I bet you he was trying to get those cucumbers to Putin. With that, we're moving on to the next clip, after that little bit of silence, and we're going to be watching a MTLB Rapira firing its gun in an unknown location. I hear some music, and I have to mute it when it gets loud. But we can see the
That's
Rapira.
that Sigma male music.
The Alpha Chad.
Yeah.
Now see them loading the next shot. Now ramming it down the breach. Now see them getting into a trench nearby. That music's getting too loud for comfort now. I'm getting scared. We can now see that the Rapira is all lined up again. From now on, we're going to give these things a name. The gun on top of it is, I believe, called an AT-12 Rapira, and what it's put on top of is an MTLB. So we're going to call this the MTLB Rapira from now on, because it's a combination of the two, and I think it sounds pretty neat, and it explains what it is. Though we can see here that it's now ready to fire. They may be doing some minor adjustments to the gun to account for a close shot last time. Did Matthew get a bot?
Gotten a few.
We now see them still adjusting the gun a little bit and firing. Good lord! That little MTLB is sitting there. I can't do this anymore. Like, look at the suspension on this thing. They they probably put the brakes on this thing, and the recoil from this is so much that the MTLB just cannot cope.
If they have the brakes on, that's nuts. It rolled back like that.
Yeah.
There's no way the brakes are on.
It's got to be an idle or something. Maybe if they put the brakes on, it damages the brakes or something, so they just have to leave the brakes off and let the thing just naturally recoil or something like that. Crazy to see, though. We now see them reloading the gun. We can also see them moving around some of the empty crate. They're now getting it off of the MTLB. They're now throwing it into the ditch nearby. And on top of that guy, he just got hit in the back by a giant box. You can now see them taking some of the spent casings and moving them further back behind the Rapira. We can now see the Ukrainian artillery preparing to fire its next volley. We can see a drug deal occurring to the left side of the screen. Ukrainians must always have their sunflower seeds. Oh, Matthew got another one.
Another one.
Another one. You still see that they're lining up shot. It appears that the MT Rapira, the Rapira, I guess I'll call it, because that's the easiest thing to say. It appears that it takes a while for them to aim the gun and to get it on target. It also appears that that actually may have been a misfiring shell. So they're now taking it out of the breach. They're now opening a box, and they're going to take out another shell. So what we actually didn't see there was a long time to calibrate the gun and get it ready to fire. We actually saw a misfiring shell. They're now pulling this shell out. We can now see the MTLB repeater firing its main gun again, and the Ukrainian soldier is running for the trees. The reason why he's running for the trees is that the Russians are now counter-battering the MTLB at this moment, once again showing you the importance of the shoot and scoot. Well, you see that one of his friends actually brought his AK and his helmet with him. That was very nice of him. And when you see it appears that the rest of the crew has also ran away from the MT Rapira, so that way they can wait for the fire to subside and then they'll return back to the vehicle. With that, that's the end of the video, but once again, a really interesting look at a improvised SPG that the Ukrainians have been using in this war. And I've got to tell you, you can actually see how improvised this thing is and how much of a stopgap job this thing really is. When you look at it, you've got to give them a lot of credit for coming up with something like this. Because I'm going to show you all this clip again. When they're reloading the gun, you can actually see right... Hang on, we got to wait for him to load it a little bit more and the camera will look over. You can see... Dang it! Maybe it was earlier in the clip. Let me go see. I think it was. Yeah, it was. It was right here. You can actually see that the sides of this are very unfinished. It was not polished at all. Someone took a... What would you use, Matthew, to cut up aluminum or steel? Like an angle grinder?
I think you could.
Like it looks like to me, and I know I'm not a tradesman, so I might be completely wrong with this. Looks like someone took an angle grinder to this thing and just cut open a square opening in the back of this MTLB, and then they took some large I-beams and they just put the Rapira gun on the MTLB. It's very jerry-rigged on top of the thing. It's crazy to see the level of, I guess you could say, ingenuity that they put into this, and the fact that it works at all is really impressive. And you got to give a lot of credit, because we're seeing a lot more of these things now than we ever had. It looks like they're taking MTLBs they're not using and MT-12 Rapiras that they're also not using, and they're just throwing the two together. Everyone's saying a cutting torch or a plasma torch. Thank you, everyone. I knew I was wrong. An angle grinder's probably not the easiest thing to use on that.
How does everybody know this but us?
I know.
Everybody knows this. Everybody's saying it.
Angry Penguin said, SWAT! I would use a SWAT to cut it up. Anyways, very interesting little piece, and I love to know that the Ukrainians are always using their heads and trying to come up with ways to combine equipment or to make new equipment that will work quite well. Moving on into our next bit of Location Unknown news, we can see another Ukrainian sniper in action.
The Ukrainian soldier is hungry, and being the long-range kind of creature he is, he sights on his prey from a distance. And lo, we have in the field a Russian deer. It has now gone down for a nap, another delicious meal for the Ukrainian sniper. We're now moving on into the next video, where we can once again see the Ukrainians sizing up a quite long-range target. One of them has gone down, another delicious meal for the Ukrainians. But alas, the Russians are not kind creatures themselves. They feed on each other when hungry, and we can never rely on them to leave behind one of their own. In fact, we can actually count on that. We can now see something that almost gave me an epileptic fit right there, where the camera quickly flipped from one color to the other, and I honestly thought I was seeing God. We can actually see something fly in right there. I have no idea what that was, but it looks like an artillery shell, to say the least.
The top 1% of the Ukrainian army. That one's bad. That's like a JFK Bernie Sanders mix. We're going to forget that one for a while. I'll have to also warm up on that one again. We can now see this sniper firing off, looks like 2 shots. It looks like he hasn't taken the guy out yet. And now see him firing again, and the dot disappeared. You know, isn't that crazy, Matthew, to just watch on the scope? Like we're sitting here and watching this. He fires, and he disappears like one of those ducks at a shooting arcade game. You know, when you hit it with a BB gun and it just plops down immediately.
Yeah.
That's what that guy did. Look at that. He just disappeared. It's like he got hit and he just phased out of this world. It's really bizarre. But once again, another one bites the dust. And you can also see that these guys are shooting at quite a range. I wouldn't even estimate how far this is in range, but it's certainly long shots that they're pulling off here. And he's sized them up. He's firing, and looks like he got one, and the other two are running off. The Russians are now running back. He's now firing back at them again, and it looks like he just took out another, so he got 2 out of the 3. And with that, that's the end of the video. But once again, a huge credit to the 28th Brigade, which is actually the badge you see in the top right corner of the screen, for their excellent marksmen. We don't see marksmen like this a lot, at least at the beginning of the war. We're starting to see them a lot more now, and I don't really know who to give the credit to for these marksmen and their skill. Is it a Ukrainian marksmanship school? If y'all know anything about the Russians, historically, they've usually had pretty high-end marksman programs, usually good sniper programs, and I feel like that would have carried over from Soviet times into Ukraine, but the fact that we never really saw any of them being used in the early part of the war may suggest that the Ukrainian sniper or marksman school didn't really exist. And now that we've seen that Western training is now being involved, and a lot of these Ukrainians are being shipped off either to Britain, the United States, or other Western countries, they may be getting training at marksman schools from these countries like America or Britain and so on. And so I don't really know who to give the credit to for these incredible marksmen. All of these guys are really good at their job. I mean, yeah, we have not seen one miss yet. And I'm sure there's misses out there, but it seems to be quite rare. And the amount of damage that they're doing, at least morale-wise, to the Russians, and also making sure that their maneuvers are impeded just due to the fact that you could get dropped from out of nowhere by an incoming sniper round from a mile away, is really helping out the Ukrainians to a good degree in some of the weaker areas of the front lines, and especially in areas like Bakhmut as well, where we've seen that marksmen have been able to hold down some city streets from what we've been told in stories. We haven't gotten a lot of picture or video evidence of it for hours on end, if not days on end. With that, we're now going to be moving on from this little clip and on to our next bit of Location Unknown News, where we saw some brand new Ukrainian artillery. This is actually some homegrown stuff, and I highly suggest that y'all stick around for it, because this is going to be next level. Of course, though, Matthew has put up a poll. A really good poll, actually. It's down now, but it was up a little while ago. And so, Matthew, get us into that poll.
All right, folks. So for our first question segment of our first stream back since Christmas, this poll says, are Ukraine-Russia peace talks any more viable today than they were 3 days ago? It looks like 83% of you said no, the situation is still status quo, 12% said not sure or undecided, and 5% said yes, slow progress has been made. Now, I have to say on this one, it seems to me that the situation hasn't changed very much. If anything, Russia has dug deeper into their positions, basically saying they're going to take the territories in Ukraine or else, and that's what Lavrov came out and said as well, so he backed that up. And Ukraine is also determined to keep taking back all their land. So it sounds like negotiations are still at a standstill and likely not to happen because Russia is still being very obstinate about it. But, Enforcer, what say you?
Oh, man. Well, I think that they have absolutely no credibility at all. When the story came out the other day, I remember thinking when I read, because, you know, news titles and mainstream news is of course always misleading almost all the time. I'll give the Associated Press a little bit of a pass, though. They usually don't do that a lot. But everyone was saying, Putin is now open to peace talks. That's all that the headlines would say. You know, and when you read that headline, you don't read the article, you'll sit there and think, oh, those those dastardly Ukrainians, they're not open to peace. And I've seen people saying this actually across the internet on my days off. The dastardly Ukrainians, they're not open to peace. They just want a never-ending war. And then if you look at Putin's terms, he's like, they have to unconditionally surrender. They have to demilitarize immediately. They have to surrender all of their weapons. They have to do, they pretty much have to neuter their own country to even go to the peace talks. So is that really open to peace talks, or is that just a ploy to get some news headlines out there that make it look like Russia's open to peace talks, but they're really not? And in my opinion, they're not, or otherwise they wouldn't have laid out completely meaningless and worthless terms to any kind of a peace talk, because at that point they have already, it's not a peace talk, it's an unconditional surrender, and you're calling it a peace talk on the fact that they've demilitarized beforehand. Moving on from that, however, I find it to be funny that today Lavrov said this, and I think this is the stupidest threat, Matthew, I've ever seen. He said, Ukraine must demilitarize or Russia will do it.
Now, that threat might be serious if they were winning, but they're not even close to winning, so it's like about as empty as it gets.
Yeah, it's like, that's like, you know, fighting your brother, say, on Christmas because he ate too much turkey, and punching him in the face, but then he gives you a good gut punch and you throw up on the floor, and then afterwards you say, listen, you better stop eating that turkey or I'm going to make you stop. That wouldn't make any sense. Also, by the way, I know a lot of you are going to be like, did you all get in a fight? No, I just came up with that for the comedic effect. But, from that, this makes no sense. They've been fighting the Ukrainian military all out for 10 months at this point. They've not been able to come up with anything worthwhile. They have not come up with any meaningful results at all. In fact, they've ended up getting the short hand of the stick. The Ukrainians are closer to demilitarizing the Russians than the Russians are closer to demilitarizing the Ukrainians. So I don't even get where the hell Lavrov has gotten this idea of saying this, because it's an empty threat. It's the stupidest threat if ever. This is like a little punk saying, hey man, I'm gonna give you a knuckle sandwich if you don't stop, and you beat him up yesterday. That's the exact thing that's happening right here. Like, you know, when I read this today before starting my news, I went, oh, so spooky. Like, what, are we supposed to be scared of this? Like, is everyone in the Russian government, Matthew, so much in denial and disbelief at how bad they really are that they still think that people perceive the Russians as a threat?
Yeah, to me it seems like Lavrov is playing the bad cop and Putin's trying to play the good cop right now, because he's taking a hardline stance and then Putin's acting like he's open to negotiations. It's all just a big farce.
It's got to be a big farce. But at the same time, having a government official come out and say something like this is something that's pre-planned, or at least something that he's told to say. And they could be playing the good cop, bad cop thing. But I don't know. I really do not know. This is just stupid on no end, though. I don't understand what the point of saying this was, and it's a baseless threat. It doesn't even account for anything at all. But in my opinion, the peace talks, at least how they stand right now, have no ground, no merit, nothing to them. And so with that, I hope I addressed that poll fairly well. And also, do we have another one, Matthew?
That was our only poll for now, but there are many more to come.
Oh,
don't worry about that.
read Kim's comment, man. Tapeworm.
Let's see. Whose comment?
Kim Buckles.
Oh, wow. that's a interesting visual.
You know, that's actually a great weight loss program. Anyways, let's get to the questions.
All right. So, up first from our super chats, we have a $100 super chat from Jeremy, who says, Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support, Jeremy. You're helping this channel to keep on running, and also, Slava Ukraini. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that addresses the comment fairly well. And it's just great to know that we get a lot of support for the channel, keeping this thing running. By the way, I don't know if any of y'all have checked, but the last I checked, I believe that the Christmas address video and the fundraiser attached to it has raised something like $7.2 thousand last I checked.
Isn't that wild?
Isn't
like
that
we weren't
crazy?
even like live then, and it raised $7,000 on the video. I'm extremely impressed, folks, how that fundraiser did.
I was completely blown away by that. I was blown away to see the support rolling in on that stream. Also, by the way, unlike all of our other streams, that one's going to run forever. It doesn't have a time date where it ends like our normal fundraisers do on Sundays. That one will last until the very end of time, until this channel stops running. And so if our channel stopping running will probably happen never. I don't know when. It's definitely not going to be in the next year or the next few years. I can see this thing going on for about 5 years. But anyways, getting beyond that, you can always go back and support that fundraiser. And it's unbelievable to think we raised that much. Right now, we're around $720,000 raised. Just about. We're probably a few thousand short of that. But it's unbelievable. And I got to thank y'all all so much once again for the generosity y'all showed on Christmas. And that was one thing that I was very skeptical about. I was thinking with that fundraiser, I was like, it's Christmas. A lot of people have probably spent money on presents for their family. And, they're off the channel. They're having a great day. I was like, we could put up this Christmas dress and the fundraiser won't go anywhere, or no one will watch it. And a load of y'all came out to watch the video, and not only that, a load of y'all came in there and threw in massive support to the fundraiser. I couldn't believe either of those happened, and I got to thank y'all all so much once again for just being that generous. All that support is going to Razom for Ukraine, which will help out a great deal in supporting not just Ukrainian soldiers, but a whole bunch of other projects that Razom runs. And I've just got to thank y'all so much once again. Also, it seems like let's see. It seems like a lot of y'all actually liked me and Matthew being on camera again, and some of y'all were asking if we would ever be on camera another time, and we can't really say anything for certain now, but I do have plans to come out with at least some videos in the future where I may be on camera. But anyways, with that, I had to add something to your support, Jeremy, rather than Slava Ukraini, because I got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and the continuing projects that we've been doing and everything that we've done so far. It's all thanks to y'all. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, something we kind of alluded to earlier, when we were filming that Christmas address, we had just had, or I think it was, we just had a massive water leak. And my camera almost floated away because the water was like going along the bottom of my tripod. So we were wading through water to get that filmed next to the fireplace. But we got it filmed, and luckily none of my equipment got destroyed.
So I'll explain that story a little bit more. Stick around, everyone. This is a Enforcer story time here real quick. I'll tell you all the details about how that happened. So we were filming the Christmas address on Christmas Eve originally. And it was later in the day. It was getting towards like 5 o'clock here, which is usually the time when everything starts to get dark around here. And we're like, hey, this is a perfect time to go film drone footage. So we started talking about the drone footage. I walked into Matthew's room to talk to him about it. And also my mom did, because, I don't know why, but she was there. And so then we heard, it sounded like a waterfall in a way, a very small waterfall. And my mom, in her typical way, I bet she's watching right now, she said, "Oh my God!" And then we walked outside of Matthew's room and into the kitchen, and the water was flooding out of all the cabinets. Like there was a literal waterfall coming out of the entire island that the kitchen is made out of. Just water everywhere. The water was like 1.5 inches or 2 inches deep. It was horrendous, and it was flooding outwards towards where we were filming the video. Our whole set was about to get flooded. So we were like, oh my God. So we started running everywhere, and we grabbed towels, we grabbed a shop vac, we tried to, it was just weird. I mean, like,
Look, a 78 Money Pit said Matt was busy bailing water. That's the truth. Like, that's not even a joke. We actually were. We were like bailing water out of the house.
And this is the funniest thing I remember, Matthew. We had a rug in the middle of the kitchen, and so when the water flooded in, if y'all don't know, rugs are kind of waterproof in a way. So instead of sinking to the bottom or just staying at the bottom, the rug started floating up with the water, and so when it was 2 inches high, it was floating on top of it. And not only that, there was a heater pointed towards the bottom of our sink on that rug that was trying to keep the pipes from bursting, which it failed to do. And so when the water's flooding, this heater is still on and running, and it's floating on top of the freaking carpet. The rug. So I run in there through the water, get to the heater. It was kind of stupid to do, but I didn't want like the whole entire thing to become an electrical mess where we couldn't touch it and we would get electrocuted from it. And so I hopped on top of the rug. It's floating, so I'm like that guy what was that guy? That guy who was on the boat with that tiger, in that movie?
Yeah, the life of
Yeah, the Life of Pi. I was like that,
Yeah,
but
that's
on a
it.
rug. And so I ran over to the heater, and it was jiggling around on the carpet because the whole carpet was shaking with water. I picked it up, turned it off, and put it on top of the cabinet. And now, to be honest with you all, we've had no running water since then. It's the 27th. We haven't had running water since the 24th. So it was a real big deal to get that done on Christmas Day because I had no water to get my hair done with, like to try and get it nice looking. So my hair was really butchered. Also, I need a haircut as well. So, those two things made that look really bad. And we had to postpone everything because we had to go into like pretty much Serve Pro mode for the rest of that night and the next morning. And we had to film the actual address in the middle of Christmas Day. So we had a decent Christmas, all things considered, but it wasn't like it wasn't like a great Christmas because you couldn't go, oh, well, this is great. Now let me go wash my hands to get all the glitter from the wrapping off of my hands. No, there's no running water. So, I didn't shower for 3 days after that. We had to go find a place to go get a shower. But I feel nice now. It's like, yay, I finally got one because I shower every day. It's a big deal for me. Anyways,
but in short though, Alabama's not set up for 10-degree weather, and it really got us bad. And it's unfortunate because it happened behind a wall. The pipe burst behind a wall, and also like totally jacked up like several different lines running to the sink. So it's gonna be days before we get our water back on. Which sucks because you don't realize how important water is in your house until you lose it.
And I got to tell you this, Matthew, knowing the difficulties of living in a house with no running water, you've really got to understand now, and you've got to really feel what a lot of Ukrainians are going through, considering that they don't have water, electricity, or even gas. They don't have any of those things, and we're really roughing it out right now without any water. Imagine if we didn't have any heating or any electricity either. That would be horrendous.
Yeah, that would have been really bad. There's some folks up in New York that can tell you about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's really bad up there. Dozens of people have actually died from the cold further north. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. So after that short little detour there, up next we have a $50 donation from Hal Rose, who says, Enforcer and Enforcer Matt, long live the LSA. We will overcome if we persevere. And pick a question from the chat if you would, please.
And thank you so much, Hal Rose. I don't know why, but your name reminds me of Colonel Hal Moore from the 7th Cavalry Regiment. Anyways, I got to thank you so much once again for the support, and we will overcome. I don't know when that was sent in. I don't know if that was sent in during the story or after the story, but thank you so much once again for the support, and we will persevere. The Lee Spring Army will continue to run day in, day out, without a pause, without a stop, until this war is over, and only then will we rest, and then we will start on something totally new. I don't know what it'll be at that point, but we will, and we'll keep on going. And so thank you so much once again for the support, Hal, and let's get a question from the live chat.
All right, and the question from the live chat is going to go to Alex for Alex, who says, Enforcer, how do you think Moscow justifies white phosphorus use on Kherson like they did on Christmas?
I don't really know how they justify that. I guess they justify it by saying the military could be in Kherson, so we're going to drop incendiaries on the city and, just get everyone who's in the way. I don't really know how they justify that, but once again, you've got to remember that on an actual official standpoint, the Russians almost consider Ukrainians to be subhuman, not even people. And so I guess they justify heinous acts, crimes against humanity by saying these people aren't really people, they're something else. And that's really sickening to think of, and of course this, just like the Nazis in the Second World War and what they thought about certain groups, and it's just sickening to think that they'll do stuff like that without any remorse or without any regard, and not only will they justify it, they'll act like it's perfectly moral to do. And it's just unbelievable. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. To be honest with you, there is no logical answer as to why they do that. It's just because the Russian government and the military is purely evil. And there's really no other way to explain it. But with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again, Hal, for supporting that live chat. And hopefully we answered it fairly well.
All right, and the third and final one for the first segment goes to Midwest Vikinger, who puts in a $30 donation and says, outstanding Christmas fundraiser, gents. Question to the lads. Have you watched Cossack Gundy interview on his return home? He is a Burt that joined the Ukrainian Marines and was a POW from either at Azovstal or outside Mariupol.
Now, thank you so much for the support. And also, we had a great Christmas. And to answer that question, I don't think I've seen that one, but there is a great video on Lindy Beige's channel of a British volunteer that had returned home, and he talked about the stories of what it was like to be shelled, which was very insightful, very interesting, actually, because you got to hear the insights of a actual soldier who's been there and what he thought about the war. And of course, there's been a lot of accounts like that. There's even been some American volunteers who've come home and explained those stories very well to us, and I haven't seen that one, though. Sadly, I've not heard of that one, but I have seen others that are kind of similar, but not quite. But I thank you so much once again for the support. Also, is he from Britain?
I'm not really sure, to be totally honest.
Because it sounds like he was from Britain. I'm not really sure, though. But regardless, I do thank you so much for the support and helping the channel keep on running, and I thank you so much for being a member of the Lee Spring Army. Also, Brad C said Lindy is horrible. Why? I'd like explain that. Like, just explain that to me. Like, seriously. Let me know why you think that, because from what I've seen, his content's pretty good. I mean, like, I like him. You know, I haven't watched a lot of his stuff, but whenever I cross it, I'm like, hey, that's not that bad. You know, he's not like a comedian. You know, he's not like joking around like I am on stream. But I do like it because you can always sit back and just listen to the information. Kind of like Defunct Land. That's another good channel. Have you ever watched that one, Matthew?
I haven't.
Oh man, Defunct Land is great. It covers everything ever. Bright Sun Films is also in that category too. Maybe you've heard of them.
Never heard of them either.
Oh, forget it. Oh my lord.
Goodness.
Oh Lord. Oh well, we'll get to that at the end of the
Or the
stream.
plumbing fund. I love that. we need the plumbing fund to be created.
Yeah, I mean,
Also, we need the inflatable boat fund for you know, getting around the basement. Like, we're gonna have to rowboat through here.
we're gonna be like Steamboat Willie. I can't even whistle right now. I don't know why, but
Or the just ride the carpet on top of the water.
I will show you the world. That's it. Copyrighted immediately. We're out of here. Anyways,
We had an indoor swimming pool installed in the basement. That's how we can explain it away.
it's a Turkish bath. Anyways, with that, we're going to be moving on from the question segment and into the Location Unknown news again, where we can see a very interesting and very reminiscent artillery piece. This thing right here is a 2S-22 Boldana, which is a Ukrainian-made truck-carried SPG, or an artillery piece. And let's take a look at this thing, the Boldana 2S-22. Now, if you know your weapons a good deal at this point, I'm sure a lot of y'all do, it's very interesting to see because it bears a lot of resemblance in many ways to the Caesar SPG that the French sent over a while ago. I know I misspelled Caesar, sorry about that, everyone. But let me go to the Caesar and show y'all this one because they are uncannily similar. That's actually too small of a picture. I need a bigger one. Here we go. There is the Caesar. There is the Boldana. They're very similar. Of course, the Boldana, I believe, uses a 152 millimeter gun. 155 millimeter gun. I don't think it's up to the NATO standard, however, but it is 155 millimeter. A very interesting piece. Let's see its range as well. Well, we don't want the operational range. We want the firing range. So 22 to 25 miles with a normal shell, and with an RAP, which is a rocket-assisted projectile, it can get out to 28 to 37 miles. So let's check out the Caesar SPG, and let's see how that compares. So let's see here. Production history, service history. In armaments, 155. Operational deployment. Let's see about the specs. Where's the specs? Like, they don't give us the range on this thing. It's kind of weird. Caesar SPG range. Approximately 42 kilometers. So these things are actually par for par, almost in speed, its maneuverability, its shoot and scoot abilities. Everything is almost exactly the same, but this is actually an in-house Ukrainian-made vehicle instead of a French-provided vehicle. We don't really know, and I said that's so messed up. Oh, wait, there's only one of these, apparently, according to Wikipedia. It's only the prototype. So there's only one of these things, and it's being used on the front lines right now.
Thanks. This is like some severe like battlefield testing, I guess.
I guess. I mean, like, the Ukrainians have been pulling out prototypes and using them a lot currently in the war. I believe they also used some kind of a BTR prototype earlier on. We don't know what happened to that one. We don't know if it survived or not. We never got to hear the end story of that. This is another interesting thing that it appears that the Ukrainians were in the process of finally getting into the production phase of its life, but it never made it there before the war. So this is the only one of its kind. Sadly, they don't have as many of these as the Caesar. It can do as good as the Caesar in most regards, but they only have one of them. Still cool to see a Ukrainian-made system operating in Ukraine, and hopefully it is proving itself on the battlefield, where the Ukrainians will invest in these heavily in the current war, although the HTZ tractor plan has been knocked out, and probably won't be operational until the end of the war when they start to rebuild again. Maybe they can make some more of these now, or after the war they can rebuild the HTZ tractor plant and then go and build more of these. They are incredible artillery systems, and it's something that the French have started to heavily lean on with the Caesar, and in my opinion, I would have to be honest with you, I believe that this is the future of towed artillery units, is that they're no longer going to be towed, they're going to turn into SPG units, where the I guess you could say the limber and the artillery piece are one single vehicle. It seems to be a lot more efficient in its shoot and scoot abilities, and for that reason alone, I believe that it will definitely be overtaking things like the M777, and we may even see in the future they just mount M777s to HEMTTs. I don't know, but I could see that happening. Anyways, we're now going to be moving on from the Bodana, which is a very cool vehicle, and we're now going to be moving on into our next bit of Location Unknown news. A very interesting bit where we saw that the 54th Brigade has captured some spoils of war lately from Russians that have ended up taking the day off. Here's the video.
Слава Україні, 54-та механізована бригада, 2-й батальйон. Хочемо показати вам невеличку частину трофеїв, що залишилось від крайніх 2 атак противника. Це тільки те, що вціліло, або що ми змогли забрати.
Is that... Wait a minute. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Is that gold-plated?
I was about to say, is that a gold-plated Maxim? It doesn't look like a Maxim. I don't know what that is, but it looks gold.
And whose is that?
Russians.
Один...
That must have been their warlord, their commissar.
I think I'd keep that one for my personal collection.
You know, you just see a Ukrainian soldier's jacket. It's got an oddly machine gun shape inside of it. He's like, yes, sir, all the weapons have been accounted for. It's like he's taking that one home. Also notice, Matthew, that some of these helmets are worse for wear, like this one right here. I'm sure that the guy who was wearing that helmet may have had better times with it.
Автомат, що тут є,
so.
це один знищений ворог. Можете подивитися, скільки тут цього. Сильно не повезло деяким ванькам. Це відсотків 20 від того, що ми тільки змогли забрати.
It's not gold-plated. Ew!
Man, what have these things been sitting underwater or something?
You're Ivan, kill Ukrainians. But sir, the gun don't work. Don't have to work. You're going to die for motherland anyways. Holy moly, these things look like... I don't even know what these things are supposed to look like. I think
Look like they came off like a pirate ship that sank or something for like hundreds of years.
the Taliban had better conditioned AKs than the Russian army. Like, the stocks don't even match. This one's actually got tape wrapped around it. Like, or some kind of cloth to hold the stock on. Look at this one. Like, the wood's rotting.
That thing's probably so inaccurate it couldn't hit like a tree like straight in front of it.
Зал трофеїв. 54.
Trophy haul. Okay, listen, I'm gonna have to disagree with that. These are not trophies. This is waste. This belongs in a landfill. It's a miracle by God that anyone ever even used these. I'm assuming that a lot of them weren't even usable. If you look at the condition of them, it looks like something you would find in a meth lab. Like you know, some guy in a meth lab would own this stuff. I can't believe it. Like, you know, these are even worse than those videos we saw a long time ago, Matthew, of the Mobics being handed their AKs at Basic, and they were taking videos of them there. These are even worse off.
Yeah, it looks like it.
What if these AKs were actually in somewhat bad condition when they were given to the Russians, and the Russians just never clean these things, and they just run around with them everywhere? And, you know, if they fall in mud or dirt, they just never clean them off, and they just get worse and worse in a very short amount of time until they're almost unusable.
Yeah, maybe so.
Maybe so. Maybe so. We're having some very good dialogue here. Man, he's sending me a text message, be like, I'm focusing on the live chat. Shut up. But anyways, this is just horrendous. I've got to tell y'all, I've never seen AKs in this condition before.
Зал трофеїв. 54-й, другий бат.
I bet you those things, Matthew, though, I was just thinking about this. These things at a gun show would probably be worth like $4,000 here in the United States.
Oh, not in that condition, they won't.
Oh, yeah, they would. You know, someone's going, I'm $4,000. I know what I got. Yeah, I know what you got. You got dementia. Oh, my Lord. But anyways.
Oh. You scare the hell out of me every time you do that. I'm like, what?
Oh, my Lord. Someone's walking in my room. I'm just kidding. But anyways, still crazy to see. And, oh, man, if I had to use that, man, I can't even say that because it wouldn't even work for that. Anyways, we're going to be moving on to the Russian casualty report here on the 27th, day 308 of the war. And the Russians aren't having a good time again, at least in terms of the infantry losses. They've lost another 620 killed today, bringing the number up to 103,220. They've also lost another 7 armored personnel carriers, another 5 supply trucks, no tanks. They also lost 2 artillery pieces, nothing else except for 1 Bobcat skid steer. They lost another one of those, and it's always good to know that every once in a while, the Russians are losing one of these. I feel like they're not losing it from Ukrainian fire, but more so their own stupidity. I'm sure they're violating loads of OSHA rules with those things, but moving on from that, they lost no tanks, which was kind of a little odd today. Usually they lose at least 1. Every once in a while, they get away scot-free and they don't lose any of them. Mostly because they probably run out of them and there's not a lot of usable tanks anymore on the front lines. So that is, of course, interesting to note. But once again, 620 troops killed in a day is not anything to brag about. That is terrible. That's higher than World War II numbers.
And they lost another Bobcat.
Yeah, they lost another Bobcat skid steer. How many soldiers did the Soviets lose a day in World War II? Let's see, how many soldiers died per day? On average, over the course of the entire Second World War, 220 U.S. soldiers died per day, each day of the war, from 1941 to 1945. Now, put that in perspective, the Russians are losing 620 a day. That is nearly 3 times the number killed that the United States faced in the largest war in human history. And that gives you an idea of how badly they're doing. That's terrible. This isn't even comparable to anything. The British, on average, from what I recall, their average day was a little bit higher than the United States, although at the end of the war they would still end up with, I believe, less casualties than we did, which was really interesting to look at. But still, it gives you an idea. It gives you a little bit of perspective, how bad that number really is, because without any comparison, it just seems like a number. But with comparison, you can see that the Russians are bleeding more soldiers now than ever. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from the casualty report and on to our last bit of Location Unknown news, where we can see the Ukrainians unloading a truck. Now, Matthew, I have to have you watch this one, because if anything has given me anxiety, it's this video. No, get the graphics up, come on!
Oh no.
Oh god!
Oh,
Oh my god!
And they're live?
No, the fuses are out of them. That little hollow center in each one of them is where the fuse would be, or the pressure plate, and you know, if there was any weight put on it, it would blow up. None of those are on, but that still just gives me a lot of anxiety watching a video like this, you know, with the history of how mines have ended up spontaneously combusting over the course of this war. It just freaks the hell out of me to see hundreds of them dumped out of the back of a dump truck. And here comes the stragglers. I mean, like, you know, they're diffused. You can treat them like this, but it still scares me. Like, I wouldn't want to be anywhere near a mine, even if it didn't have a fuse in it, being thrown around like this. It scares the hell out of me. Like, I don't even care if it's safe. That just scares me. Anyways, Also, think, Matthew, if one of those things had a fuse in it and they didn't realize it, imagine the atomic level explosion that would have happened from this place. This would have been seen for miles. Like, this would have been like measured like Krakatoa. We would be feeling the seismic vibrations of it here in America. And that's just crazy to think that they're just throwing out mines like this.
Yeah, these things can still go off if they're like hit, aren't they?
Yeah, well, they have to have a fuse in them. These things can't go off the way they are right now. But if you screw a little,
What if you shoot one?
I don't know about that. I mean, like, if you shoot one, I'd assume probably yeah, but I don't really know for certain. But oh man. Also, by the way, this is actually a Ukrainian dump truck. This isn't Russian. This is actually Ukrainian, and it freaked the hell out of me though. I guess this is the way you deal with mines, you know, if they're diffused, but you know, me personally, I wouldn't want to be anywhere near this when it was happening. Moving on from the location unknowns and all the way past the northeastern front, where we've already gone over all the news, we're now moving down into the most active front line in the entirety of the war, the bloodiest battle of the war as well for both sides, the Battle of Bakhmut. Before we get there, we've got to cover some news in the Spernay area where we saw a Ukrainian soldier using a heavy machine gun. Now, beyond the trap, here's the video. Where you see him getting ready to fire it. You see him firing it. And that's a big gun. Good lord, look at the mount it's on. That's an anti-tank gun, pretty much.
Like an exhaust pipe out the front.
He straight piped it. Good lord, imagine being Russian infantry and running up on that MG emplacement. You would just get shredded. I think the shrapnel alone could get someone. Also, the front of the barrel smoking is pretty cool looking. I mean, that's just a really cool little emplacement they got there. And he's really putting work into it. I don't think they're under fire because this guy is standing right beside the emplacement. He's not in cover, and he's just filming the video. So they may be firing this thing to test it out or show it off. We can also see another Ukrainian soldier walking back there behind them. Pretty relaxed. He's not taking cover or running or anything. So it looks like they're just testing out the gun. But still, man, that thing is a whopper. Also, by the way, Matthew, this thing is bigger than a 50 cal. This is a 14.5 millimeter shell that this thing's firing.
Dang.
Let me pull it up for you. KPV machine gun. I think you're going to get blown away by this thing. It is huge. So let me scroll down a little bit. Here's
Huge.
It's huge. Believe me. Nobody believed me. It was huge. It's locker room banner. It's just massive. It's huge. I'm talking about my socks. Hey, you know what they say about socks? They got big feet.
Anyways, here is a KPV machine gun that was captured, I'm supposing, in Vietnam or somewhere else. And we can see it on display here at the Buckley Space Force base in Colorado. What?
Huh.
They now have an actual purpose-built Space Force base? They do.
Well, that's nuts. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. I thought the Space Force was always using Air Force stuff right now on Air Force bases. I didn't know they had their own. And look, they even have the symbol up and everything.
Oh, that's pretty cool. It must have been like a former Air Force base.
It must have been. You know the guys who hold the rights to Star Trek must be fuming that this is the emblem of the Space Force.
Yeah, seriously.
You know,
they got away with like ripping off like a pretty close version of it without paying any royalties.
Like the executives at NBC must be absolutely spewing out their front end and rear end right now that the government was able to get away with this. This is the closest thing the Starfleet we're going to have in real life.
Although they're in a catch-22 though, because if they say no, it looks bad. It looks unpatriotic, like they're not for the military. So they're kind of like in a bad spot.
True. And also, if you look at Star Trek lore, this is actually kind of like the natural evolution of what Starfleet would become. It kind of evolved from the U.S. and then it went global. And then, after global, there was a global government. Then they created Starfleet, well, in a way. Anyways, moving on from all the Star Trek lore, really weird to see that. Also, you can see the symbol of the base. It's just so weird. It's just so freaking weird. I can't believe that's actually their symbol, you know? It's like, that's just... Anyways, moving on from that. I didn't know they had a whole purpose-built base. Anyways, the NSVs are huge, and they're also whoppers of a gun. Those things can knock out just about anything for their size. I mean, they're pretty competent. They can knock out BMPs. But with that, we're going to be moving on from that little bit of footage up in the Spurny area and down towards the area of Yakovlivka, where we saw that the 92nd was hitting some Russians on thermal drone footage. Now, this is actually quite interesting. As we watch this film, you can actually see Russian units rotating in and rotating out. The first example we've ever had of a Russian squad appearing to be pulled off the lines. We can see two squads coming in to take their place, and you can see the squad that is retiring moving off the line at the same time. Kind of bizarre in a way. Usually, a squad stays in position until relieved, and then once relieved, they move out. But these guys appear to be moving out before the replacements are even in position. So that's not really that great if we're seeing what is actually happening. We now see the next squad moving up. We can see that spacing in the rear part of the line was not being observed, but now the artillery is coming in, and spacing is all that matters in this entire video. We see some mortar fire hitting on the right side of the screen. And now, oh, wait a minute, wow, look, it's a field trip, man. Hello, kids, I am the commissar. Today we're leaving the front lines in a large single-file line. Okay, kids, remember, no spacing whatsoever. The artillery gets us better that way. You die for motherland quicker. And now they're moving into a large burning building.
Yeah, why are they running toward the building that's burning down?
Nothing says, this is fine, like a burning building. If you get it, you get it.
Man, what is that, lava going off over there?
No, that was a mortar shell. Now we can see that the school field trip is now continuing on. After they checked out the burning building, they'll now be moving on to the next exhibit, which is their doom. You can see another artillery shell land. It appears that these guys are absolutely clueless. Like, an artillery shell blew up, none of them even got down. They're all just standing in a line.
They're trying to find the nearest source of warmth.
Clean up, everybody clean up. Oh, it's okay. Oh! Now they got down. Now they're running. Egon! That one looked like a very close to direct hit. The line leader is still pledging forward with the remaining ducklings. And now the other building they're in has been hit directly. They're still on the move, and you can see that as they keep going, the group is getting smaller and smaller. They keep on losing guys each time they enter a building, so then they move out. And that's all. They just keep on losing guys. They're now down to like 5 men. Another one hit. And you
they're using a lot of shells on these people.
Wait a minute, this is even funnier, Matthew. While this group is moving around up here like Slitherio and getting blown away by Ukrainian artillery, there's a whole other Russian unit you can see back there on the infrared, and they're also in a line and just walking around. Look at that! Look at that! There's another one!
It's like they're trying to get them killed, like, seriously.
Yeah, it's like they're literally parading these guys in front of enemy fire to get them killed. And it looks like they've taken out the entire first platoon that we've seen in this video. The whole thing's dead now. We don't see any of them moving anymore. And that's the end of the video. And if that gives you any idea of why the Russians are getting obliterated so easily, I don't know what else would. This is the best example of stupidity at its finest. Instead of getting into cover, the commander of this unit just keeps on moving his platoon around in the wide open, under artillery fire. Not just artillery fire, it appears to be something that's actually aiming directly at them, maybe even a tank. It's firing at them, and instead of getting to cover and just waiting for the artillery fire to subside, he continues to just keep them moving until they all get killed off. And then we can see another squad replicating the exact same thing further back. Stupidity! These people win the Darwin Award. If anyone did, they really did. They actually bit the dust, all of them did, for their stupidity, and that's what happens when you have no common sense. So we're moving on into the next clip from Bakhmut, further down the line, and actually in the Soledar area, where we can see a drone footage taken today, well actually 23 hours ago, of the Battle of Soledar and what it looks like right now. Now this video does have copyrighted music, so we can't play it. When you see some soldiers moving through a field, I'm assuming that they're actually Russian. You see them getting down. And it looks like mortar fire is coming in on them due to the precision of it and also the small explosions. We now see them moving into a abandoned building. It appears that looks like a Ukrainian tank, if I'm not mistaken. I don't see any Z symbols on it, so for now we'll assume this is a Ukrainian tank. We see it firing down at the building, but you now see a large group of soldiers moving into a ditch. We don't know whose soldiers these are. We don't know if they're Ukrainian or Russian. We now see the tank advancing and firing on them. So I'm assuming that they're Russian, because the group moved in front of the tank. The tank has no identifiable markings to show it's a Russian tank. And it's firing at the infantry, so it must be Russian infantry being fired at by a Ukrainian tank.
Man, this area has been leveled like crazy.
Oh, it has. And you can see that the few Russians that are left...
And look how slow they're moving.
I know, like, and the few Russians that are left again... Oh, wait a minute, there's more of them. They popped up like little dwarves in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. They're now moving into the tree line. And now
you can tell there's no leadership. Like, there's no, like, person directing them where to go or anything. They're just all on their own.
Yeah, I mean, they have no plan. They don't have any kind of formation. The spacing is non-existent. Like, look at these guys and how they're grouped up here in the bush. Like, right here, there's 5 of them in, like, a 3-foot spacing from each other. There's no order here. There's no semblance. But one thing that commissar did say while they were leaving the front line is, it's okay. We'll just white phosphorus the whole place once we leave. Because the next bit of footage shows the Russians absolutely leveling the place the best they can with more white phosphorus again. Didn't they understand they were going up against a tank? That's not going to do anything to a tank.
Stupid.
They're stupid. They're just stupid. You would think that they would call in a helicopter or maybe an aircraft. The aircraft and the helicopters would most likely get shot down, so they probably wouldn't call... Well, they would, probably. Or some kind of actual artillery, like high explosive, or something similar. Instead, they call in white phosphorus on a tank threat. Like, I don't understand it. I really don't. I'm at a loss as to what they're thinking. This is why they're losing. I honestly think this at this point, Matthew. The Russians, at least material-wise, at the beginning of this war, had the ability to win the war, but it was their stupidity that it's doomed them. Because think about it, they have enough artillery shells, they still have enough at least to keep this thing going, and the Ukrainians say their artillery is being outgunned by the Russians in most places in terms of shell volume fired. However, the Russians never use the right stuff for the right moment or where it needs to be used. Like, why are you using white phosphorus against a tank? It's not going to do anything to it. They're just wasting white phosphorus shells that could be used on infantry elsewhere. If they're going to commit war crimes, might as well commit them the right way. They're not doing any of this. You know, and you would think...
I think Honeydew's right. It's all they got. They're running out of stuff.
Maybe it is all they got, but at the same time, we know one thing. They have some tanks, or they have something that can counter a tank. We don't see them calling any of that forward either. They're sending up a purely light infantry unit. It has no kind of heavy equipment whatsoever. It gets fired at by a tank, or they know there's a tank in the area, and so instead of calling in anti-tank units, like a Kornets or a similar ATGM, or maybe a tank, instead of calling in something like that, they call in white phosphorus. It doesn't make any sense. None of this makes sense. Also, Daryl, you said that's night footage. That's true, but it must have been called in later in the day because you can see that that's the exact same street with the exact same houses. So it appears that the artillery came in later to deal with a tank. I don't understand this though, y'all. I'm not getting any more what the Russians are really doing, and it shows how bad the incompetence is from every level of their military and government, that they can never do anything right. Nothing is done right. We've never seen anything get pulled off successfully yet, and it's because of the stupidity of the average Russian soldier and the stupidity of the average Russian government official. Moving on from that, and into our next bit of news from Bakhmut, we also saw a Ukrainian sniper team in action here as well.
Да.
Oh yeah, also this doesn't have music, so let me unmute it real quick.
Бля, казав, що будуть, але чи вже є, не знаю.
Holy moly!
Oh, it got me again.
Я уточню, Фока.
Thank you, Mark. We'll get to
Фока,
that in a
треба
minute.
знати, чи наші є на Тереконі. Треба знати, чи наші є на Тереконі.
Now, you see, this is intelligence right here to explain what's happening. This marksman has guys in his sights right now, but he doesn't know who they are. And so he's calling in over and over and over, and he's not going to shoot until he can either confirm if they're friendly or if they're Russian. If they're Russian, he'll shoot. If they're Ukrainian, he'll hold his fire. This is what you would not see from the Russians. The Russians would immediately fire on that group, regardless whether it was Ukrainian or Russian, and they would sort it out later. We've seen that enough times to know that is a Russian MO. And that's not what the Ukrainians do. And this is the kind of training that makes the equipment work. This is a very accurate gun and could probably take out about half of that squad before they could ever make it to cover or hide. And he's waiting for the right moment to make sure whether they're Russian or not.
Бачиш, нахуй? Єбанув туди, де огонь вели, блядь, і трохи заткнулись. Кажу, єбанув там, де огонь був, і трохи заткнулись, сука.
We hear fire in the distance. Appears that the marksman is adjusting the sight on his scope. He's now steadying his aim.
Да. Ні.
Не мовчи. Знає він.
We hear a BMP firing in the distance. But you see him tracking somebody in the field. He keeps on moving the gun from left to right.
Шукай огневі точки. Шукай огневі точки, газом по огневим точкам, похуй.
Правий фланг закинув лапки там. А скільки десь туди?
Блядь, ну я стріляв з розчетом на 500 мінімум.
Looks like they're trying to get the distance worked out. That's the end of the video. We never saw the marksman fire, but one thing we did see is Ukrainian training once again showing that it's way higher end than Russian training ever has been. Once again, they did not fire until they ever confirmed that it was a friendly or enemy unit. That's a massive deal because, of course, without doing that, he could be firing at friendly forces and screwing them over. And you always got to know, even though we didn't see a lot of action on the marksman's end, that his training is the reason why, and that's to be commended. That type of training is terrific. It's great, and it's good to know that he's not going to take a shot unless if he is certain if they're Russian. With that, we're going to be moving on into the next bit of news. Further down the line, somewhere in the fields between Bakhmut and Bakhmut itself, where we saw some Ukrainian tanks on the move and firing in the Bakhmut front near a Ukrainian-held trench. So, here's the video.
Еще один. Малец, сюда иди.
We see the tanks moving forward. We can also see a very nice 50 caliber machine gun. I love them. And these appear to be T-72As. We can see him firing in front of the position. See it firing again. This tank is getting all the action over here. It's firing 3 shots now. And that's the end of the video. But, hey, I gotta say, although they're T-72As, right now at this point in the war, T-72As are actually on up there now. The Russians don't really have many T-72Bs or T-72B3s or T-80s that we can see anymore. It seems that they've largely been relegated down to T-72As and T-62s as well. And so these tanks, while being at the beginning of the war somewhat outclassed by the upgraded versions of the tank that the Russians were using, is now par on par with what the Russians have left, even better so than T-62Ms. So we're now going to be moving on from this little clip, and it's good to know that the Ukrainian armor is in action somewhere around the Bakhmut area, and of course inflicting some decent losses on them. And we're going to be moving past this one. I had a little bit of a debate with myself before the stream started whether I would show this one or not, because it wasn't marked as an SFW when I first put it on here. It may be marked now, and it kind of was. To explain it to some of y'all who may not click on the link in the description below to check out the map, this video would show a large crater that some Wagner mercenaries had hidden somewhere near the chicken tender, we're assuming, and either Ukrainian infantry attacked them and wiped them out because the footage was being made by Ukrainian infantry after the fact, or an artillery barrage got them inside of the crater and they all ended up getting killed. All in all, there was about 6 or 7 of them in that crater. So if you want to watch it, click on the link in the description below. You can go to this map and check out this video for yourself, but I won't be able to show it on stream because I think it may be a little bit too graphic. We're now going to be moving on towards the front line a little bit further south of the chicken tender, where we could see that the Ukrainians were bringing in the firepower, to say the least. They brought in Medusa, so let's check it out. Oh, look at that. American firepower. You gotta love the M2. It's a good gun. You hear some artillery fly over them.
Да.
We now see him firing down the field towards the Russians. Oh, and this man is using it like a machine gun, Matthew. This Ukrainian soldier said, "We have the barrel, we're going to use the whole barrel." As he continues to melt the thing down. Oh, man. Oh, dang. I gotta say, though, I love to see it being used this way. It's a lot better than seeing, like, boom, 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 clink. Oh, it's jammed. You know, it's a lot better than seeing that. Oh, man. And I gotta say, the 50 caliber, while not being as large a caliber as some of the other Soviet-era machine guns that we're seeing that are being used, this thing does a good job. It hasn't served in the U.S. military for so long because it sucks. It's a very good machine gun, and is able to do its job quite well. And it's good to know that the Ukrainians are getting some good use out of it too. And hopefully we'll see some barrels on the souvenir market on eBay that we can get, because I think these guys, with the rate of fire that they're putting down, might have to replace this barrel soon. So with that, we're going to be moving on from that little clip. Also, look at how rinky-dink an AK looks near the Chad M2 50 caliber machine gun. That thing looks like a toy, like a BB gun, compared to the size of the M2.
Oh yeah, but could you imagine lugging that M2 around? That thing is heavy as hell.
You know, back in World War II, these things actually required, I believe, a crew of 5 to operate. It required several people to carry the tripod and also the gun, and then a couple of guys to carry the ammunition. It was a deal to carry these things around. And when this thing was introduced into service, it actually changed the entire definition of what machine guns were what. Before this thing came into service, Matthew, the Vickers machine gun and the Maxim were actually considered heavy machine guns because they were the biggest machine guns around at the time. When the M2 50 caliber was introduced into service, it was so heavy that these things, the Vickers guns, got knocked down to medium machine guns, and the M2 50 caliber became the heavy machine gun.
But didn't they put these on like a wagon or a wheelbarrow or something?
Yeah, some of the Maxims actually had a little wheeled mount. I'll see if I can find you one. Maxim gun. I don't think the British had wheeled mounts, but the Maxim...
Oh, there they go.
Yeah, the Maxim's almost always seen on little wheeled mounts like this, because you could pick it up with your hand, and you could just carry it around like a suitcase, kind of.
Oh, wait a minute, who's supposed to... It looks like a... What is that, a mount for like an animal to like pull it or something?
What do you mean, an animal? Like, no.
It looks like it's made to be like hooked up to like a horse or something.
Hang on, let me see if I can show you a video of someone, well, a picture of someone actually lugging the thing around, because you could just, like you know how you have a carry handle on the suitcase and you just pick it up and walk with it? That's kind of what you can do with this. Like, it's the same theory in a way. You don't have to attach this thing to any horses or anything. That's going a little overkill. I'm trying to find it. I can't find it. Dang. All these pictures, but no one's actually showing how you carry it. That's actually kind of crazy. Also, by the way, did you know, Matthew, that another little fun fact, the guy who actually invented the Maxim, Hiram Maxim, he actually test fired his machine gun so much because he was having so much fun with it, he actually went deaf.
Why, he didn't know to wear hearing protection?
There was no such thing as hearing protection back then, so he just went deaf.
Well, that's interesting. He was smart to create the gun, but you'd think he'd wear hearing protection or at least invent it.
You know, like one day, Matthew, he was sitting there, I've finally learned how to improve the cyclic rate of fire by 0.5%. His son came in the room. Dad, I'm so proud of you. What was that, son? I can't hear you.
Dang.
We're going to wake up
Rip
the whole...
speakers.
Yeah, rip speakers. But anyways, we're going to be moving on from the little Maxim stories. Once again, really cool to see the 50 caliber, great machine gun. And we're going to be moving on from that little bit of news around the Bakhmut area and into the town, where we actually got a tour of the town of Bakhmut and what it looks like today on the 27th of December.
Друзі, ми знаходимося зараз в Бахмуті. Ви побачите, дивіться цей репортаж, ви побачите кадри безпосередньо з фронту, ви побачите українських військових, які захищають це місто від російських окупантів. Ви почуєте, чим ви можете допомогти. Тут, скажу вам наперед, українські воїни просто фантастично круті козаки. Вони знищують окупантів, але їм теж потрібна допомога. Вони безпосередньо сьогодні звернуться до вас, і тому що ви побачите, яке місто, як воно зараз виглядає, всередині безпосередньо зараз. І щоб не допустити російського міра, так званого, далі вглиб України, ми повинні всі бути разом і допомогти Україні.
Also, I'd like to issue an apology to anyone that can still hear for the loud screaming. It seems that a lot of headphone users are dying right now in the live chat, and I'm sorry, but your loss is in service of the Lee Spring Army. Thank you all so much once again. Back to the video. Sorry, once again.
Дивіться цей репортаж, і ви побачите, як виглядає, як тривають бої за місто Бахмут.
And I'll see them driving through the town of Bakhmut.
Так, друзі, їдемо з нашими військовими вулицями Бахмута. Ось бачите, як воно виглядає зсередини.
When you see the usual destroyed buildings, massive craters.
Як виглядає справді Бахмут. Це, друзі, пустинні вулиці Бахмута. Ось так зараз виглядає місто Привид. Хоча тут ще є цивільне населення подекуди. Ось бачите, ще цивільні в Бахмуті. Ось так. Хтось на велосипедах, хтось переїжджає. Так. Велосипеди, такий транспорт для...
Oh, look at that animal. Did you see that?
Yeah, I was looking at that. I was waiting to see if you would say anything about it, so now I can. Like, that dog...
That thing was scooting.
That dog acts like everyone is, like, on a mission, like, walking around, you know, they all have got something that they're doing. The dog is walking like he's got an objective. He's like, a stick of bread, a butter of milk, and a gallon of bread. He's like, I gotta go to the grocery store and get those things.
Dog's moving like the magic carpet.
Yeah, look at it. That's a cute little dog, I like it.
Для пересування. Ось так ще живе місто.
And this town, of course, has been thoroughly wrecked. Of course, it's been on the front line for months on end. Surprisingly enough, some buildings are still somewhat standing. And here in the middle of the town, you can actually see what appears to be a MiG-17.
Символ Бахмута, так?
When you actually see they're going to walk up and give us a closer
Так,
look.
друзі. Ялинка. Різдво, ось таке Різдво в Бахмуті.
you hear the artillery fire in the distance as he was looking at the MiG-17. And now we can see who gets the right-of-way, the tank or the car.
Колись центр Бахмута, так?
Yeah, I gotta say this, man. It's really interesting to me to see everyone in the world copies the I Love New York thing. Like even Bakhmut has an I Love Bakhmut sign.
That's what they were going for with that?
I think so. I think that was it. Because if you look at the I Heart New York thing, it looks very similar. Like, at least in its theory.
Maybe so. I think New York might have copied them.
That was a nice city hall, actually.
Yeah, I would say.
That thing was
Man.
dripped. That thing was dripped out.
Я люблю Бахмут і все, що від нього залишилось.
Now see them driving through some hedgehogs and down through more destroyed buildings. And actually see one that was completely burned out to the right. Oh wow, that Humvee was zooming. And he said now see them continuing to drive through the town.
Так. Ось тут були, бачите, розважальні центри, магазини.
Ooh.
А тепер це ще одна чергова рана і руїна на тлі української землі. Наслідок окупації російських окупантів.
See an old man still carrying on with his life the best he can through the rubble.
I don't know why these folks don't want to evacuate instead of living in that.
Sometimes I wonder, you know, and I kind of understand why. It's almost the same reason we're still in this house with no running water. You know, it's like we're afraid of where else is there really to go, and I guess that's what makes a lot.
We don't have anywhere else to go.
I mean, that's true. We don't really have anywhere else to go.
Although they've set up places for these folks to go, though, presumably.
Yeah, but you know, it could be the fear of, is it better? Is it even worse? You know, and also a lot of these people grew up in these towns from when they were kids to now, and they've never really left the town except for on a very rare occasion. And so the idea of being uprooted and possibly never having the chance of returning is probably something that scares them. Of course, you got to remember, a lot of these older people, they lived in Soviet times when the government would just straight up lie to them, especially in Ukraine. Like, for example, look at Pripyat. You know, they told all those people, it'll be a temporary thing, it'll only be for 3 days. Hop on the bus, don't pack anything. They left their entire lives behind, and they took 60,000 people and just bussed them to anywhere across the Soviet Union and just dropped them off and said, you're living here now, and your whole life is over the way it was. You got to start a new one. And they may be thinking that that may happen to them, you know, because while Ukraine is a totally different country than the Soviet Union, a lot of these old people grew up most of their lives with that kind of mindset, knowing that, you know, something like that could just happen at any minute.
True, true. I will say, though, the people that could have stayed behind in Chernobyl, they're much better off leaving, even though they were lied to.
Oh yeah, they were. I mean, like, you know, who would want to live like an irradiated freak, but...
Бахмуті, зупинка вулиця Свобода і слава Україні. І ви бачите, хто в нас тут. Валерій Залужний, керівник українських військ, керівник українського спротиву. Яка ситуація зараз на даний момент в Бахмуті?
Ситуація напружена, але контрольована, стабільна. Ворог намагається щоночі і щоранку на розсвіті нападати піхотою. Основні сили в них піхота за підтримку АГСів, мінометів, танків та гладкоствольної артилерії.
Відомо, хто саме намагається штурмувати місто? Це регулярні війська чи найманці?
ЧВК «Вагнер». І попередньо з нами у нас були прямі стички з кадировцями в чорній формі, бородаті. Дали їм відсіч. Вони трішки отримали по заслугам, відійшли. Зараз на даний момент більш ЧВК йде і мобілізантів їхніх. ЧВК ще якось питаються воювати, стріляти, а мобілізанти по перших обстрілах
Oh, we have seen that.
намагаються накувати п'ятами.
Які потреби саме українській піхоті потрібні в Бахмуті? Що найбільше потрібно? У нас будуть дивитися волонтери, нас буде дивитися діаспора, так, нас буде дивитися бізнес, вашу розповідь. От зверніться до них, що потрібно?
Потрібно по колесам, техніка потрібна, машина, яка зможе проїхати, не одна машина, які зможуть переїжджати переправи, болота. У нас є машина, якби вони такі, чим люди допомогли, вони сідають, грузнуть, і в ітогі товар та люди не доїжджають до пункту призначення. Товар, вибачаюсь.
Все раз.
Боєприпаси, продовольство не доїжджає до місця призначення свого.
Тобто автомобілі і літальні апарати.
Літальні апарати, так, щоб бачити, звідки до нас, м'яко сказати, ворог на нас наступає, звідки він планує засідки, звідки в нього міномети стріляють, АГСи, кулемети, засади, де вони роблять. Все, що буде допомагати нашим бійцям виживати і подавлювати ворога.
Скажіть, як вас звати?
Владислав.
Так, де ми зараз знаходимося?
Город Бахмут.
Яка ситуація тут, Владиславе?
Напружена, але стабільна. Ми держимо оборону і всіми силами захищаємо нашу страну і нашу землю.
За рахунок чого вам вдається стримувати натиск російських окупантів?
В первую очередь за счет нашего сильного боевого духа. Мы не сдаемся, потому что это все-таки наша земля, это наша Украина, и мы должны ее защищать.
Що потрібно безпосередньо, чим український народ, волонтер, діаспора може вам допомогти у цій боротьбі? Що потрібно тут в Бахмуті вам для ефективнішого ведення війни?
Смотрите, в первую очередь я хотел бы сказать о том, что украинский народ, украинцы должны объединиться, помогать армии в первую очередь тем, что мы не ссоримся в тылу. Плюс к этому нам нужны автомобили. Автомобили нам нужны, потому что, к сожалению, в боевых действиях это 3-4 дня, и автомобиль ломается, его надо чинить, нужен запас автомобилей. Если есть возможность, нашим волонтерам большая просьба максимально внедорожников, пикапов сюда, потому что дороги, к сожалению, у нас очень разбитые. Это сейчас первая необходимость. А по одежде, плюс-минус выдают, все есть. Стараемся, мы держимся и вы держитесь. Но только если мы объединимся, мы и выиграем эту войну.
And that's the end of the video, but that gave you a little bit of a tour around the town of Bakhmut, what it looks like today. And you can hear that on the shopping list of these soldiers, one of the main things that all of them talked about was the lack of cars. It appears that cars, of course, cannot survive on frontline conditions and poor roads for too long without breaking down, and they, of course, need more cars. Sadly, our channel cannot really help out with that request because all of the fundraisers we run are on the GuideStar program and verified through YouTube Give is safe. So we can't really, there is no fundraiser that helps them out in that aspect directly. However, there is a group that I know is in this live chat right now. And one of the people in this group, Matthew, is a channel legend, actually. His name ends with a 9,000 in it. And if y'all wanted to help these people get vehicles, I know of one group that makes sure to take care of the funds and actually get them where they count. NAFO is an incredible organization, and one of the few that we've actually seen delivering massive amounts of material support. We've already seen them deliver loads of pickup trucks before, and that's exactly what the soldiers are asking for in the Bakhmut area. And so, for the first time ever, I'm actually going to sanction I guess you could say a non-profit group, a fundraising group that isn't directly in YouTube Give. I will give NAFO a load of credit. I've never seen them do anything questionable or sketch during the entirety of this war, and if I would endorse anyone, it would be them. And so if you want to help the Ukrainian soldiers get themselves some automobiles and vehicles, make sure to support NAFO, because they actually do those kinds of things, and they actually get the vehicles over there where they can actually be used. So make sure to support them if you want to get them a car. And so with that, we're going to be moving on into the center of Bakhmut, where you see a picture of no man's land again. And this time, this has just pure World War I vibes. The dirty clothes that are just mud-colored, the trash laying around, the broken trees just living in a pit. It's World War I down there. We've already gone over this many times before, but it's terrible down there, and you've got to give a lot of respect to these soldiers for continuing to keep this thing running. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from that little picture and further on down and back behind the lines towards the area of Ivanivke, where we saw a Ukrainian helicopter on the move. We got to mute that. When you see the helicopters flying over the fields, we see this being filmed by a car or something similar. See them passing by a BTR of a sort. It's now firing off its rockets, popping off its flares. When you see another one flying right over the car.
Is that a Land Cruiser?
I think it might be.
They went with option 4. Lag alert.
Lag alert. Lag alert. Lag alert. Oh, let's see here. Is it reconnecting now? It looks like it's reconnected. We'll keep here until we see. We got to make sure. Okay, so it's saying excellent connection now. It looks like we have reconnected. But moving on from that, I always like, Matthew, how whenever you say something, you're like, looks like they went with option number 4. And like you just breathe right into the mic. I'm like, jeez.
I think only you can hear that.
Oh man, I mean it's being picked up on Discord, and you know it picks up desktop audio, so everyone hears that. But anyways, with that is the end of the clip, and it's nice to see that the Ukrainian helicopters are continuing to support the area of Bakhmut. Moving on down towards the area of Opitne, we also saw the muddy fields of Bakhmut being home to a little M777A1, which is helping out the Ukrainian frontline troops. And it appears that to most people, they can hear it, actually, which is kind of weird because it's coming through Discord.
I think you might be hearing things.
No, I'm not. I know I'm not. Well, you can see them loading the piece, walking around in the mud, loading the charge. The shell's already in the breach. And man, is that M777 dirty as well. You now see that the gun's ready to fire, and now they're firing. Kind of weird. There was no audio in that whole video until right then.
Rip speakers for the second time.
That's the end of the video, and I'm sorry to everyone who's just recovering to have a second one. But still, nice to see that they're using M777s and hopefully delivering. Again?
Yep.
Oh, great.
It's the water. It's gotten into the network.
It's the water. Get out the water. Let's see here. I think it's fine now. It's fine now. It's fine. All right. But with that's the end of the video. And nice to see the M777 still in action. Moving on down into our last bit of news near the Kreminna area. We also saw Russian positions in this area getting hit by a mortar fire.
Так і знай, хробаче. Срачисько.
You see the Russians in their trash pit as normal.
Чіткий орієнтир і для очей, і для жала. Польову кухню вони тут розвернули. І сміттєзвалище.
This guy's got a whole pointer and everything.
It looked like a car antenna.
Yeah, it kind of did.
Досить витіювата і велика. Шниряє тут 5.
There it is again. Look at the Russian.
Туда?
Look at him go.
І сюди.
And there he goes again, блядь.
Where the hell is this guy trying to go?
Такого лайна, як правило, шкода, за виключенням моментів, коли з'являється хробак самонаводящий. Тоді на допомогу приходять кабанчики. До вашої уваги, хробак самонаводящий. Необачно вільно єблуючий, я б сказав.
Right
перед очима. Але то таке.
This guy's explaining it like a professor, like his cadence and his tone and everything. He's like, notice how he's getting up. This is a typical move by the Russians. This is move Alpha 773. Their typical ploy when under mortar fires to get up and walk out of the trench. Like he's explaining it all like that.
Ну ось і все. Джага-джага!
Джага-джага! Igor!
Igor!
Прошу пана, до вас гості летить.
I think that's a new one though, Matthew, right here. Listen to him. Listen to him.
Ну ось і все. Джага-джага!
Джага-джага!
I know what that means.
Дуже повільно у повторі. Прошу пана, до вас гості летить
And now we start the next story, the next unfortunate food.
120 міліметрів. Паф!
That's the best one.
Okay, listen, everyone. All right, all the people who always whine about my jokes. This man literally just watched this guy get evaporated by a mortar, and he went poof. Come on, all right, give me a break.
10 міліметрів. Паф! І пш!
Poof.
Ласкаво просимо у пекло. Ну все, дивимось востаннє, але з відчуттям...
What's he got for this guy?
Бадабум!
He's speaking English in the sound effects.
Yeah. Buff. Jugga jugga. This man was full of lines, Matthew. Like, he had one prepared, one after the other. He was rapid firing that stuff. Every time a Russian got hit, he had a new line. He was like the Halo announcer. Double kill, kill-tastic, Kilimanjaro. You know, all that stuff. He was literally like that. He was just coming up with his stuff as he went. Man. Bada boom. Jugga jugga. Poof. Anyways, we now have a holy trinity to work off of on the rest of the stream. So with that, it's now time for us to get to the deep state map, because we have seen something interesting. The Russians have actually made ground in Bakhmut over the past 3 days. Modest amounts of ground, but ground nonetheless. So this is what the last time we were on, actually 23rd. This is what the Russian front line looked like the last time we were on stream. This is what the Russian front line looks like now. So all in all, they've gained a small amount of ground. They've finally moved forward to the rear part of the ridgeline down near Klishkivka. This ridge does lead up to Bakhmut and is one of the major hills to the west that the Ukrainians hold. And it appears that the Russians have once again advanced over the open field and in towards Bakhmut. Again, they will probably be pushed back if history is anything to go by. And also it appears, if we go back in time, the Russians have been able to push the Ukrainians back a little bit on the chicken tender, but the Ukrainians still control the key parts of the tender that control both highways. And so for now, the Ukrainians hold, and we'll see that they will probably continue to hold well into the future, because the Russians have to fight up the cliff and then north along the ridge, probably coming under fire from places farther back like Chasiv Yar the entire time. So we'll probably never see Bakhmut actually fall. With that, we're now going to be moving on from the Bakhmut front and further on down into the area of Donetsk, and specifically Marinka, where we saw Ukrainian BMP firing at the Russians. We can hear the music playing. We can see some soldiers on the thermal camera. We now see them getting down. And we now see this BMP firing. It's always so weird to see what it looks like from inside these vehicles when they shoot.
It's pretty cool looking in there. I like the displays on the left. It's pretty cool looking.
It's got a cool factor going for it.
Yeah.
We see that they're continuing to fire. Also, the Sunken Grave said, I think the chicken tender resembles more of a battered shrimp. He has a point. He has a point, you know. We may have to... I can't rename it now. We've been calling it a chicken tender for about 2 months, but the battered shrimp is a close second right there. That's the end of the video, but once again, a look into what's going on in the Marinka area as the Ukrainians are supporting their infantry with BMP fire. Moving even further on down the line and into the southern front, we can see that the 23rd was rotating out from some artillery fire and ended up getting inside of their Max Pro, and I believe the Max Pro got hit on the way out. You see them getting out of there. I hear some music, but I don't think it's loud enough for us to get copyrighted. But you now see the Max Pro pulling up. When you see the rear door coming down. You know, that reminds me, Matthew, of that Ford F-150 drop down, like, ladder thing on the gate. The tailgate.
Yeah,
you know,
somewhat.
Kind of like that, but on steroids.
I love these things. They may have their faults, but they're pretty cool.
Now this music's getting kind of loud, so we're going to have to mute it. But we can see they're inside of the Max Pro. The gunner's in the turret. It appears that we also have a medic inside of the Max Pro. And they're on their way out. I wonder what it feels like to ride in one of those things. I wonder if you feel completely safe or if it's just kind of safe. I wonder how it feels.
Sounds like a good poll.
Yeah, that's actually a really good poll idea.
Or a good poll for the people that ride in those things.
Yeah, I guess not everyone rides in an MRAP every day or a Max Pro. We see that they're still on the move. The music has gotten louder. We see that they're still on their way out. We haven't seen it take a hit yet, but if I remember correctly, they do. But I may be wrong. That's the end of the video, and once again, a really interesting look at the Ukrainians getting evacuated from the front lines in a Max Pro. And of course, these things do a fairly good job. I actually saw someone say, you know, a lot of them have blown up. Talk about safety. We've seen one of these things take an RPG directly on the side of it in this war, and it survived. We've seen it a lot, actually. Not just in Ukraine, but also in American service in Syria, and also, I believe, in Iraq and Afghanistan. But anyways, moving on from that, very interesting video to see, and once again showing you what the Ukrainians are going through in the Pavlivka, Yekharivka, and Soledar area as well, which has been a pretty contentious part of the front line so far. Beyond that, we don't really have a lot to report in the Donetsk and southern front areas. It appears that, at the moment, not a lot is happening down there, and so the front lines remain largely stable. With that, we're now going to be moving up to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky on day 308 of the war. And I just noticed, Matthew, that the news had gone well over time. We're now at 11:13, and usually the speech comes on around 10:40. So with that, here's the speech.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Провів сьогодні засідання Ставки, вже 44-те за цей рік. Тематика зрозуміла, передусім це Бахмут, Кремінна, Донбас загалом. Можливі дії ворога на східному напрямку і наші дії. Заслухали командувачів, визначили з кроками на найближчий час. Продовжуємо готувати Сили оборони і безпеки України до наступного року. Це має бути вирішальний рік. Розуміємо, які ризики є зимою, розуміємо, що маємо зробити навесні, а отже розуміємо, які результати має продемонструвати увесь сектор оборони і безпеки. Окремо обговорили постачання боєприпасів і ремонт бойової техніки. До речі, хочу подякувати нашим спеціалістам, усім нашим партнерам, усім, хто задіяний у відповідній роботі. Нам вдалося налагодити таку систему, щоб не лише повернути відремонтовану техніку на поле бою, але й щоб взяти з поля бою трофейну техніку і поставити її на службу нашій державі. Це дуже важливий результат року, і усі, хто долучилися, справді молодці. Говорив сьогодні з прем'єр-міністром Італії, подякував за вже надану і за нову підтримку. Пані Мелоні повідомила, що зараз на розгляді питання про ППО для України. Ми скоординували наші кроки. Я вірю, що італійська підтримка дозволить нам зміцнити захист українського неба. Звичайно, обговорили і наші дипломатичні плани на найближчі місяці, а також зимові загрози, які ми, я впевнений, подолаємо разом. Провів сьогодні нараду щодо роботи банківської системи і нашої співпраці з МВФ. Маємо забезпечити в наступному році ще більше можливостей для українців і гарантовано зберегти міцність наших систем банківської та фінансової. Також говорив з керівником найбільшого у світі інвестиційного фонду BlackRock. Отримав чергове підтвердження, що бізнес розвиненого світу вірить у нашу перемогу і готовий інвестувати у нашу відбудову. Спеціалісти цієї компанії вже допомагають Україні структурувати фонд відбудови нашої держави. І ми вже готуємось і до участі у Всесвітньому економічному форумі у Давосі. Позиція і перспективи України будуть там представлені. Загалом цей тиждень для України буде важливим з політичної точки зору. Ми заходимо в наступний рік і маємо зберегти спільне розуміння наших національних цілей. Звичайно, Це звільнення нашої землі від ворога. Також відновлення України, повернення наших людей додому, подальше зближення нашої держави з ключовими партнерами, відкриття нових можливостей для України у світі. Це все завдання на найближчий час. І не лише для держави, а для кожного і кожної з нас. Незабаром я представлю свій погляд на реалізацію цих завдань у щорічному посланні до Верховної Ради про зовнішнє і внутрішнє становище України. Хочу, щоб це послання було не звітом, а нашою з вами розмовою про наступний рік. Дякую всім, хто працює заради України. Дякую всім, хто воює за нашу незалежність. Дякую всім підрозділам наших сил оборони, які наближають поразку ворога. Слава Україні!
And with that, that's the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky. And of course, that wraps up our Day 308 news segment. I thank you all so much once again for watching the news segment. We're about to be moving into the question segment, which is almost equal in length to the news segment. But I got to thank everyone who's about to leave once again so much for watching. If you did enjoy, please make sure to subscribe. We run this stream every day of the week except for Mondays. And of course, you can always count on us to be here at the exact same time every day of the week, except for Monday. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into the question segment. But Matthew, I got to say something. I've been noticing a lot in the live chat while President Zelensky's speech was going on that people are saying that our black chair is not as epic as Zelensky's green chair.
Yeah, we didn't get one for Christmas.
We didn't get one for Christmas. We only have the black chair. We tried our best. You know, it is what it is. It's actually an office chair that we got from for free. So I was like, hey, that's nice. So I took it. So anyways, that's
also if we got one, it would have been soaked by the water anyway. So
yeah, it
would have been green with I guess
mold.
bacteria then.
Mold. Oh man, it would have been terrible. But this chair is pretty long lasting. Matthew actually has like a gaming chair or something like that. I just have the reused office chair. And if y'all had actually seen it, like if the camera had been a little bit angled down lower, like the fake leather is like peeling off of the arms and everything. It's actually quite old. It's just the top part actually looks okay, so we used it on camera. But anyways, with that, I saw that Matthew's been putting up some zinger polls. I mean, like, these things are just absolutely good. Destroying the Russians with facts and logic. Thanks. So with that, let's you're logically telling me that I don't really know where to go with this guy. But anyways, let's get on into the polls. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right. So we have 4 of them this time to make up for not having 2 in the beginning. So first up, the first one said, what do you think of the Ukrainian-made prototype military truck? 81% said I like it and they should produce it. 16% said unsure, and only 3% said nah, they should abandon it. Now for me, I think the design on that truck looked very capable. It looked really rugged too, like those old I'm not saying I did not like the Soviet Union, but they had a decent looking truck, I must admit. They're like those like snow runner looking trucks. I'm a big fan of that design. But I gotta say, it looked very capable, so I say produce it. But Enforcer, what do you think?
I would say produce it. Anything that's Ukrainian homemade is usually pretty good. It supports their own military industry, and like the Swedes, they could eventually build up their own little arms industry that is quite good, and they can hopefully export those weapons around the world to good people, not bad people, and make a dime. So I think it's actually not that bad. I think it's a pretty comparable system to what the West has in most degrees. I almost said regards. You know, whenever I stutter like that, it's not because I can't speak. It's because I usually have like 4 different words in my mind to use for that one spot. So I'm like, which one do I use? And then I start stuttering because I'm like, regards, degrees, what? But anyways, with that, I hope I answered that poll fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right. And moving on to our second poll, it said, are the Ukrainians being safe by dumping the mines out of the truck as seen in the video? It looks like 50% said, yes, they're being safe, no fuse. While 25% said undecided, they're not really sure if it's safe. And 25% said, no, that's not the safe method. I'm not sure if there really is a really safe method when you're dealing with mines. It's always going to be dangerous to an extent. I think they could have maybe mitigated the risk a little better by not dumping them out of the back of a dump truck. I'm not sure who's done that. I've never seen that before, but I'm going to have to say that's not the safe method. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say I'm kind of undecided on it. I don't think it's necessarily the safest thing to treat mines like in the world, but considering that there was no fuse in it, it's technically safe, but at the same time, I just don't know. I mean, I'm like, dang, it's if one of them did have a fuse in it and they didn't catch it, if it gets hit by another mine, it will blow up probably just by the weight that's being pushed down on it. So I don't really know. I would have to remain undecided on that one, to be honest. So with that, we are on to the next one, and I hope I addressed that one fairly well.
All right. And the next one said, do you feel bad for the untrained Russian conscripts that have no leadership? It looks like 41% said no, they deserve what they get. So 29% said partially, I have mixed feelings. 25% said yes, they aren't prepared for war. And 5% said unsure or undecided. So I got to say on this one, I've always held this belief, and it's somewhat controversial, I think. I feel bad for them, to be completely straight. The conscripts don't necessarily support the war. Some of them might, some of them don't. And for them to be put out there in a very, very, very unfair situation like that, they're not even capable of fighting for themselves. That to me is despicable. And Putin is not only killing Ukrainians, he's killing his own people and putting them out there for the slaughter. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say kind of mixed on it. I kind of feel a little sympathy for him for that reason. At the same time, a lot of them, because we've seen what 1420 showed us about Russia. While it seems like a decent amount of the younger generation, well, when I say decent, it's like 40% of them don't really support the war. 60% of the younger generation does, and then almost everyone who's older supports the war that we've seen without really much of a question. So I would say, in my opinion, I don't really have that much sympathy for him in that degree. And on top of that, whenever we see protests or revolts or mutinies in the Russian military, it's never about the war itself. It's always about, oh, we don't have guns. We don't have good guns to shoot Ukrainians with. It's never a mindset of like, maybe we shouldn't be fighting them. It's always just, you're not giving me the proper implements to go to war with the Ukrainians against. And I don't know. I don't really feel that much sympathy for him, especially considering the war crimes that we've seen a lot of them committing, whether they be highly trained or poorly trained. One thing's for certain, poorly trained troops commit more war crimes than highly trained troops for the most part, unless if it's a part of their ideology. Like you can see that goes against the grain, like with the supposed NKVD, which was supposedly a great unit in the Second World War, but historically they were terrible, and also the SS, which historically was a great unit, but in reality it was a terrible unit. Both of those were supposedly highly trained, and they committed loads of war crimes, but you would see that less trained soldiers, even in the United States military in the Second World War, committed more war crimes on average than higher trained units or more seasoned units did. And so I would say for the conscripts, considering what they're probably doing to people behind the lines, torturing them, torturing kids and so on, I don't know. I don't really feel that sorry for them. I guess they kind of get what's coming to them. But with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and for the fourth and final poll, it says, do you feel that Ukrainians that refuse to evacuate are needlessly placing themselves in danger? 40% said yes, they should have evacuated. 10% said unsure. 24% said no, some are too poor or old to leave. And 25% said no, their home is all that they know. And now I'll have to say that for some of the older folks that have only lived in one place their entire lives, I can imagine that is next to impossible for them to like mentally grasp leaving the place. But at the same time, if it's being leveled and being reduced to rubble, it seems like they might decide to leave. I'm really not understanding why they don't want to leave, because there's places set up for them to go to, at least temporarily, for them to live. Maybe they're of the mentality they're going to go down with the ship. If they can't have their home, then they're just not simply they simply don't want to live in the country anymore. I don't know, but I'd have to say I think they should have evacuated, because not only are they placing themselves in danger, they're also placing the soldiers at risk for hitting them as well, the Ukrainians. It's making it more dangerous to fight. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that's a pretty good point. It does make it more dangerous for the soldiers to fight, but at the same time, considering that they have the choice, I've got to respect that some of them are exercising, I guess, that freedom. And also considering this, there's an extra layer to this whole thing. The martial law has been declared in Ukraine, and the military could forcibly evict all of these people from these towns and evacuate them, regardless whether they want it to be or not. But it seems that the military has deemed it to be an acceptable risk to allow people the choice of whether they want to leave or not. Because, one thing I always have to explain to everyone is that the Ukrainian military right now is in charge. There is no such thing as rights in Ukraine anymore. There is only such things as liberties right now. That's what martial law pretty much means. And the military can exercise discretion as to what liberties people are able to exercise or not. And the fact that military commanders and the higher-ups have allowed the liberty to be exercised that you can opt to be evacuated or not to be quite respectable. And while it seems to be a foolish decision to stay behind, I've got to respect to a degree that they're willing to, and that the military allows them to. That's something just really interesting to see, and I've honestly got to say that is a great example of how the Ukrainians largely still respect the freedoms of the citizen instead of the needs of the state. Considering that is putting soldiers at risk, that's putting those citizens at risk, yet they allow them to stay. So with that, I hope that addresses the poll in a way. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and that was our last poll for now. So with that being said, we are moving on to our super chats once again. And I see there's a bit of an uproar in the chat right now over something somebody said there. Quite interesting. But anyways, up first, we have a $150 donation from Oats Air. He says, I hope this will cover at least 1% of the pipe and water damage fixing cost. Take a question from the chat in Slava LSA and Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support. And also thank you for the pipe fund. But I just want you to know this. The reason why we showed that story is just to let y'all know what was going on. I don't want y'all to feel like there's any like sympathy thing going on there. We just thought it was a funny story to tell. But we do thank you so much for the support. That will probably go towards fixing the pipe. They actually have to cut out the wall to get to the pipe. It's in there. But we'll still get it tended to. And I thank you so much once again for the support to the pipe fund. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep alive.
Yes, indeed. And thank you very much for that, Oats Air. And up next, we have a $120 super chat from Denise Riches, who says, for the plumbing fund, LOL, a question from the live chat. And also, we still need to go back and get the question for Oats Air as well.
Oh, yeah, we do. Yeah. But thank you so much for the support once again to the pipe fund. The pipes are always important, and the one that broke has broken several times at this point. It's just in a vulnerable part of the wall. But we will make sure to have it fixed. And of course, thank you so much once again for the support and allowing this channel to keep on running. And also, I don't know about y'all, and I don't know about you, Matthew, but when that pipe flooded and it was like pouring out into the carpet, that seriously looked like the Titanic, like with how it was like flooding. It was like the house was sinking underwater.
Yeah, it looked like the Titanic, all right. It looked real nice with our carpet. It looked real nice with our carpet and pots and pans floating around the floor.
You know, actually, to tell you a little bit more detail of the story I didn't tell y'all before, Matthew, the bottom floor flooded so badly. Matthew and me were actually floating, and he was on top of the rug. Like on top of it, and I was holding on to his hands, and I was sitting there in the water, and he said, I will let go, Jack, and then immediately afterwards he let go of me, and I just sank to the bottom of the freezing cold sub-zero water. But anyways, moving on from that Titanic reference, hopefully y'all got the joke. It was bad. I mean, holy moly, I have never seen that much water inside of a house before. I'll tell y'all that. And it's not a big problem. It's not a big fix either. It's a very small fix, but due to how many...
for the pipe?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, you know...
I don't know if I'd call that a small fix,
putting it into context, it's not a whole home renovation or anything. It's just, cutting out an opening in the wall, removing the affected section of the pipe, and replacing it. So it's not that big of a deal. The big deal is that no one can ever get out of here. Get out here to fix it. People are so backed up with all the other busted pipes around this city that they can't get to ours. And so the time that we'll see people actually come out here to fix this problem is going to be like in 5 days' time. So we're going to be without water for at least 5 days, and it may go on even farther than that. We've already been without water for about 4 or 5.
And it really throws you out of whack too. Like, I love my schedule I keep on every day, and without being able to like get up and use water, it's like throwing me off like tremendously. I wasted like the entire day today, and I felt so unproductive. I was unproductive as hell today.
Oh, I do too, because one thing I always do before this stream is I always shower. I have to I shower every day. I have to be clean. I hate being filthy. And when the pipes bursted on the 24th, I wasn't able to take a shower for 3 whole days. I couldn't, I actually slept on top of my bed because I felt so gross I couldn't sleep in the bed. You know, and this is all sounding like a big deal. It's not that big of a deal, but we're just sharing with you all what's been going on here because you've already heard a little bit of the story, and you know we're just kind of carrying it on. But anyways, we're gonna get out of that rabbit hole. But I thank you so much once again for the support, and let's get the live chat for Oats Air as well. So with that, let's get to the live chats.
All right, so the live chat sponsored by Oats Air and also Denise Riches. The first one goes to I Am Gift Bearer, who says, why are the Russians so obsessed with Bakhmut?
The Russians are obsessed with Bakhmut, mainly because if you look at the front line they have right now, this is the only town of a size that is worth taking anywhere. Everything else is way behind the lines. Like Velika Novoselka is about 1.5 miles away from the front line right now. And even while that's really close, it's not close enough for the Russians. Bakhmut is just about 1/4 mile away. Well, actually, it's on the active front line right now. And so in terms of towns that they can take of size that are very close and hypothetically easy to take, Bakhmut is the only one right now. And that's why they're continuously trying to take it, because at least in the onset, it was going to be an easy victory, considering they only had to move forward a very small amount. So with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. And we are on to the second live chat.
All right, and the second one here is the somewhat controversial comment earlier that got everybody stirred up in the live chat. So let's get the Enforcer's take on it. This one comes from Harry Etzko, who says, Enforcer, this is one war of 10,000 in history. There will be 10,000 more. Do you agree people shouldn't bring children into this world? Sickness, war, etc. Why have kids?
I feel like that's kind of like a nihilist mindset. I would say that it's fine to bring kids into this world, because while there's a lot of suffering and things that go on, there's also a lot of good that goes on in this world too. It's a whole experience. It's not just one side. It's not heads or tails. It's not good or evil. It's something in between. And life is experiencing all of those things together. You know, the suffering, the goodness. I mean, like, you know, I'm sitting here with busted pipes without water, not able to take a shower, and I think that's bad. There's people on the other side of the world in Ukraine right now that don't have heating, water, electricity, or anything. And then, you know, there's times where I go out and we run fundraisers on this channel, and we raise thousands of dollars, and I feel like I'm on top of the world because we've been able to help out so much. You know, life is a box of chocolates, like you know, someone else said. You never know what you're gonna get, and I've got to be honest with you, I think it's perfectly fine to have kids in a world like this. It's always been like this. It's never going to change, and there's no point in going, you know, it's time to give up, because no one's given up. No one ever gives up. It's part of life, is to continue to persist against challenge, adversity, danger, and try and pursue becoming better in this world. A lot of y'all may know Nietzsche. I don't know if y'all know Nietzsche or Nietzsche. I call him Nietzsche because I never really learned how his name is actually pronounced. He was the guy who actually came up with nihilism in Germany in, I believe, the 1860s or the 1870s. He spent his entire life going to explain that while there is really no inherent purpose in living, it's up to people as a collective to try and find a common purpose to live for. Now, I believe there is a purpose to live, but that's beyond the point. Even going from a nihilist mindset, Nietzsche was really the one who kind of created the whole thing. His whole entire point in creating it was to disprove the nihilist mindset and to say that there was still a point of living in this world. And I believe there's still a point in having kids and raising a family, because, you know, imagine how much of a void there is of not continuing on another generation that'll be able to have their own story and experience their own sorrows and their own happiness and their own joy and their own pains. You know, it's just part of living. So with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And to be honest, I'm not a big fan of nihilism at all. When you look around the world, there is no there's not really a lot of purpose on the daily goings on of things to go, you know, to keep doing things. You know, like there's no reason to go to the store. There's no reason to go buy a new video game. There's no reason to go for a drive or go to college, really. You could just get by. Or you could not get by at all. You could just give up. You know, you could do all these things, but there's something nice about coming up with a purpose. My purpose is to report on this war right now. That's my whole purpose in life, and to try and help out as much as I can in that regard. And so I've made my own purpose in life, and through it, I go through my own suffering. I've gone through breakdowns. I've gotten worn out. I get exhausted, and then through all of that, there's great moments where I feel euphoria for how much we've helped out and how much people like this channel or how much people enjoy our coverage of it. So for all those reasons, all the good and bad, because it's all a mixed bag, I would say that I think it's perfectly fine. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. To sum it all up, I think there is a point in having kids and raising a family still, even in a world like this, because it's always been like this, and that would be without mentioning all the good things that happen in life as well. But with that, we are on to the next one.
Although I will say, though, if you are going to have kids, it would be very nice for folks around the world to raise those kids right, so that way they don't grow up to do the things that you see some evil people doing, like Putin. And, you know, raise the kids where they have a good mindset and not, you know, fall into traps like that.
But you know,
anyway,
but Matthew, on an equal flip coin, there's always going to be bad people in the world. Someone could have a perfect upbringing and end up being the most sadistic, sick person on earth. I mean, if you look, like, well, I can't really say that about Hitler.
But it reduces the chances.
In a way, kind of in a way, but you know, when you think about it, like, you know, look at everyone. Like, I was going to say that Hitler actually had a good upbringing, but turned out to be an evil person. But then I remembered his dad beat him every day when he got home. So not really. He had problems starting off, and that may have been where the mental issues came from. But moving on to people like, I'm trying to think of anyone who had a good upbringing. There's a lot of them. I can't think of their names. Like, look at, not him. I'm trying to think of someone who was inherently evil and had a good Mao Zedong actually had a good upbringing. I just remembered him. He was actually born into a somewhat aristocratic family in the Qing Dynasty era, and when the Qing Dynasty collapsed, they still floated off of the money that his parents had made during the Qing Dynasty. But still, he ended up killing 40 million people during his reign as pretty much the dictator of China in the early part of the communist Chinese reign in China. You know, you could say he had a good upbringing, but he turned out to be a pretty rough person. You know, there's a lot of people like that out there in the world. I don't think there's a way to actually remove evil from the world. I think you can combat it, you can quell it, but there's always going to be something that's popping up, and you have to deal with it. You have to.
I think you're talking about the people with mental issues, like a sociopath or a psychopath or something like that. Because if they have their head on right and everything's screwed in well in the head and things like that, it would seem that they could control that. And if you had good raising or a good upbringing, they should be able to avoid that.
I mean, like, kind of in a way. I see what you're saying. But I don't think there's a way to get rid of evil in the world and people. Much like there's really no way to get rid of corruption in a government ever. You can always try and cut it out as much as you can, but there will always be some kind of corruption somewhere, much like there will always be some kind of evil. And once again, you got to remember, without evil, there is no good. And without corruption, there is no purity. Because there is no concept of it anymore, because there's no opposite. You know, it's like being able to love but not being able to hate. Love becomes formless because there is no opposite to it. Like there's always got to be an antithesis out there somewhere, and people will make it. If you look at history, like during the Roman Empire, as far as the Romans were concerned, was the only thing on earth. They didn't know of anything beyond the Roman Empire. That was it. It was just the Roman Empire. Somehow, they would still make strife inside of Rome. They would have civil wars and things like that, because you just can't get rid of these things. Strife, evil, corruption, things like that. It'll always exist. It has to exist. It's just part of, I guess you could say, life. It kind of like the experience. Like pit camps at balance. It's just the balance of things, I guess. But with that, I hope that explains it a little well. I hope you see where I'm coming from. I see where you're coming from, Matthew. You're making some really good points. And with that, let's get on to the next one. That was actually a pretty interesting question. I saw a lot of people get very contentious about that in the live chat. It's kind of an interesting discussion, as to what people think. Is it really worth living in a world like this, or is it not? But with that, we are on to the next one.
It's definitely not a world that's ideal, but at the same time, people still have to have kids because humans have to exist. And if the good people don't keep having kids, that means the bad people in the world are going to keep having kids that are going to eventually outnumber the good people, and that's going to be very bad, and they're going to make their lives miserable. But anyways, up next we have a $95 super chat from Mark, Slava, Ukraine, and sadly he did not leave a comment.
Ah, man, I saw that earlier too, and I thank you so much for the support, Mark. You've always helped out this channel. This is like one of the first times, I think, like in a blue moon, that he sent in a support with no comment.
I think he might send in those quite a bit without a comment.
But he always throws in something like a Slava Ukraini or Long Live the LSA. He always sends in something. But still, I got to thank you so much for the support, Mark. I wish there was more to add to it, and I thank you so much once again for running this, for supporting this channel and helping us to keep on running. I was about to get that flipped around. I was gonna be like, thank you so much for running this channel so we can support you. But anyways, thank you so much once again for the support, Mark. You've been helping out this channel massively, and if it wasn't for viewers like you, it wouldn't be possible for us to be here right now. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support.
All right, and up next we have a $50 super chat from Dutch R. Jen, who says Star Trek took from early NASA in 1959 and Air Force logos, Delta as early as 1942. Quote unquote, Roddenberry wanted it to look like Starfleet had grown out of a real world situation, that it had evolved from something familiar, that Earthlings in the 1960s were ...
Interesting. Let's take a look at the NASA logo, and let's see if we can find out what it looked like. So, I gotta tell you, Matthew, honestly, the one that they made in 1975 was the best one, right there. I think that was the best NASA logo.
Don't they call that,
the worm?
The worm? Yeah, that's right, the worm.
I like that comment earlier in the live chat about the tapeworm.
Yeah.
Just to remind you.
Yeah, I like the worm.
Yeah, I like the worm. I really like it. I love the worm. I think it's better than the one we got now. The one we got now, to be honest, is kind of boring. This one just looked cool. It was super cool. That's a whole video in itself of how like government logos came to look like that for a short time. But anyways, I gotta find this logo you're talking about. I think you're talking about that little stripe thing on the NASA logo. It didn't show up.
For the worm logo, the government actually hired a design firm to like redesign their entire like marketing strategy for NASA.
Yeah, and they did that for a lot of government agencies at the time as well. Like we can pull up
the EPA too.
Let me see. Let me pull up the FDA logo from 1975. And here we go. Here's the FDA logo, once again made by the same firm. I think these are really cool designs. I hate that some of them were phased out. Like now we have this one. You know, it's good. It keeps some of the original design fashions of the first one, but it doesn't have that same like energy that the little line.
They just copied the like pharmaceutical company logos with the new one.
Yeah, this literally looks like something you would see at Rite Aid, you know? Like it's
yeah, like Pfizer.
Yeah, it's not that great. But anyways, moving on. Also, let's pull up the EPA one. We got to look at the EPA. Hang on. Is that the one? I know that's not the one they made because all the ones they made were simplistic.
It's that one over there on the right, that green one.
This one?
That's the old one.
Yeah, this one. That one was fair. That one was really simple. Wait a minute. Here it is. That's the one.
You know, it wasn't really like ingenious, I'll have to admit. It was kind of simplistic, like some like Microsoft Paint clip art or something.
Yeah, but it's like that cassette era, you know, like RoboCop era kind of logo, like I guess you could say designs. I think they're neat. I really like them. I mean, like, how can you not like? Anyways, we're about to go way over time. How many super chats do we have, Matthew?
We have quite a few.
That sounds like more than 20. So with that,
sounds like about 20.
Thank you so much for the support, Dutch Argin, and thank you for letting us know that, because I actually didn't know that Roddenberry was ripping off NASA instead of the other way around. And so with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for throwing that in.
All right, and up next we have a $20 super chat from Jose Ruano. We also have one from William Klin, and we have one from Tony Fleming, who said, "Yeah, just for the hell of it."
They all said that?
Or just Tony said that. Oh. Jose and William just left support and no comment.
Tony! And also, thank you, Jose and William, for the support. But Tony, you gotta drive the car right. You gotta drive it safely, Tony. You gotta drive it safely. You can't be killing people all over, Tony. But anyways, thank you to all three of y'all so much once again for y'all support. Y'all help this channel to keep on running so that way we can keep on reporting on the news and always making sure that this channel keeps rolling. Long live the Lee Spring Army. And so with that, thank you to all three of y'all so much once again for the support, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Roy FR, who says, glad to see you back, and please take a chat question.
And thank you so much for the support, Roy. I'm glad to be back. It felt weird taking 3 days off, but it was really nice, actually. And it kind of gave me a moment, not to rabbit hole again, but it kind of gave me a moment to reflect on how nice it was for a short while to not always be in a war mindset every day. For 3 days, I wasn't in a war mindset. I didn't even really check the news on Ukraine for 3 days, just to give myself a break. And it was actually really nice, and it reminded me of how nice peace actually is, peacetime is, because, you know, in America, there really is no war. You know, if you don't pay attention to the news, it's not going on. And it was like, wow, this is just so nice. It's like peace is what people ought to strive for, you know, just, and, you know, not peace at any cost, but peace. And if you have to build up a massive military, the likes of which the world has never seen, to stomp anyone in a matter of hours to ensure that peace, I get it. You know, it's like just going from doing this for 304 days in a row at that point, and then stopping for 3 days. I was like, man, now I get why we spend $700 billion on defense every year, because we don't have to get into wars if we don't need to, because the military is so large. But anyways, with that, I thank you all so much once again for the support, and with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a... Wait a minute, were we supposed to do a chat question on that one?
Oh, yeah, we were. Yeah. So let's get to the live chat real quick.
Man, Roy, the enforcer almost robbed you of your chat question. But anyways, back up to the live chats. We have a question from, let's see here, Roger H., who says, enforcer, would Nazi Germany have still surrendered if the Allies had been prohibited from attacking Berlin or any targets within Germany, similar to U.S. restrictions placed on Ukraine?
Yes, we would have never been able to win, because we would have made it to the borders of Germany and just stopped. We would have never been able to actually take the Ruhr, which was very important. The Soviets would have never been able to attack Berlin, which you could say was what made Hitler off himself, and then Dönitz got in charge, and then he was the one who signed the unconditional surrender not long after. It would have never been able to happen. And going off of that kind of mindset, you could kind of justify the Ukrainians striking and attacking Russia, but at the same time, it is a defensive war. And it's not a total war. The Ukrainians are not trying to look at making the Russians unconditionally surrender. They're just trying to stop the Russians from attacking them and then get a peace treaty. But I do see what you're saying. That's actually a really good point. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. Thank you so much once again for supporting us, Roy, with the super chat. And I hope we answered that live chat fairly well. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right, and up next, and also, by the way, I saw several folks recommending several things to us. We kept the heater up at the right temperature to keep the pipes from bursting. We also let the water drip as well, and we took all the steps that you're supposed to take to prevent the pipes from busting. Even put caps on the faucets outside. Nothing stopped it. It was a flaw in the design in the house that caused it to freeze. So sadly, nothing we could have done to fix it. And also, the pipe that busted happens to be a larger pipe. It's like one of the main ones that runs water into the house. So I don't think the little shark bite thing is going to fix it. But it was a good idea. I didn't know what those were, so I had to look them up a second ago. But yeah.
Oh, man. And also another thing, just for those of y'all to know, some of y'all in the north, the building codes are different in colder areas. They require the pipes to be somewhere near the center of the house, so that way they don't freeze. Here in the south...
Or inside the wall, and instead of, you know, in between the outside and the wall.
Yeah, it's got to be somewhere where it doesn't freeze. Here in the south, there's no such thing in the building code. So you can put the pipes anywhere. You can even... like, hell, you can almost put them right on the outside of the wall. And so whenever the freeze comes through, the infrastructure in the south isn't really built to survive freezes. And that's what happened to Texas that one year. Everyone acted like it was a failing of the local government that something like that happened. The fact is, is that it just isn't built for that. It's not built for that kind of weather. Kind of like how New York isn't built for heat waves. If a heat wave comes through New York, people might actually die up there from the heat. Like in Britain, people die yearly at this point in Britain from the heat waves that are now coming through because of certain climatic, climatic changes in the world. So, you know, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of weird, and especially for it to finally come through Alabama, because you're like, the Texans, what the hell do they know about weather? And then it comes through Alabama and all the same things happen. All the pipes burst. You know, I think some people, for a very short time, were without power. It wasn't as bad as Texas, though, where it was like a week where most people were without power. But the South just isn't built for that kind of weather, and our house isn't built for it either. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Robert McDevitt, who says, Enforcer, do you think the U.S. will send Apache helicopters? Apache.
I
got all fancy with it. Apache helicopters, I meant to say.
We're going to be sending that Apache helicopter.
Excuse me, sir. Do you serve Apache here? Yes, we do.
Yes, I'm a rich American. Do you sell Apaches?
That actually was a British person, I think. But anyways, I don't think we'll be sending them these. It seems like everyone doesn't really want to send them. I don't know why. It's not that exceptional anymore. At least some of the older versions. The longbows may be, because they have the longbow radar. I'm sorry, I think they're all called longbows. I was just thinking about that. Anyways, some of the newer ones, like the this says it's an AH-64D. I doubt it. I think it's an AH-64A. Because it doesn't have the radar on top of the rotors. But anyways, moving on from that, we got to keep on topic here. I don't think we're sending them because they've never been brought up ever. I think we would probably see an F-16 in Ukraine before we ever see an Apache. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And I thank you so much once again for the support. And before we move on, this Apache is dirty. Look at the tail section of this thing.
Oh yeah, the Apaches like to get dirty.
That sounds wrong. But with that, we're on to the next one.
It did, kind of.
And thank you once again for the support.
All right. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Panama Floyd, who says, any comments or news on the Russian bank run yet?
I haven't heard about the bank run yet, but I'm assuming that banks don't run in Russia. Usually it's very hard for a brick and mortar building to grow legs and just run away. And that's always funny, because I remember back in the day, a bank disappeared near my house, and I told my mom, and she said, well, it didn't just grow legs and run away. And I was like, well, it did. But anyways, with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, Panama Floyd. I hope that does address the question fairly well. To be honest with you, I'm going to have to declare ignorance on it beyond getting past the actual joke. I don't know about that. I haven't heard about it. So I'll have to check on it a little bit more and see if I can report on it here. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that addressed the comment fairly well. And Matthew, you can always tell who's watching the stream way back. Like they're way behind the live stream, because Buckwheat just said Defunct Land is great. We were talking about that like an hour ago, and he must be watching an hour ago. So when he gets to this point, he's gonna be like, oh, he's gonna be like, they called me out. It's fine, man. I just hope you're enjoying it. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And moving on to our next one, we have a $20 super chat from Classified Veteran, who says, looking at those decrepit rifles taken from the Russians, from the looks of things, I don't think any of those rifles are being zeroed. Unzeroed rifles are only good for suppressing fire in close quarters combat. Man, I don't think they could hit anything with those old nasty guns.
That is very
They're
true.
like probably inaccurate as hell.
You know, they're probably worse than Wassers, Matthew.
Oh,
Ooh.
it's hard to believe anything's worse than that.
I think they are. Oh man. Remember that story of that Wasser, that 22 Wasser that we were looking at before, and the guy actually selling it told us not to buy it because it was so bad?
Yeah, that's pretty bad when the salesman tells you, oh, no, you don't want this one. It's so bad you couldn't hit a tree for miles.
Yeah,
it's like, well, aren't you selling this gun? It's like, well, yeah, but I'm trying to save you the trouble. It's like, why'd you buy it? It's like, just execute the thing.
Remember he said, I bought it for my kid, and we went into the backyard to shoot it, and we put a beer can in front of him, like 20 yards from him, trying to shoot it, and it wouldn't hit. It just missed every time.
And that was the last day they saw the neighbor.
That's the last day they saw the neighbor's cat too. All you heard was, okay, fire. And then the cat just dropped.
They're like, hey, we hadn't seen Jimmy in a while. I wonder what he's doing over there.
Oh, Mr. Beast, he's making a new video. Anyways.
Oh no, you didn't say that, did you?
Oh no, we're about the stream's about to go down. Yeah, I forgot to mention to y'all. Every time we say his name, our stream always has connectivity issues. It's like a curse. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one. Watch, y'all, watch. The stream will have connectivity issues here soon. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support. And that is true. Those things are terrible.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Jet V, who says, "Please take a question and thank you for all you do. Slava Ukraine."
And thank you so much for the support, which helps us to keep doing all we do. And also, Slava Ukraini. And so with that, let's get to a live chat.
So back up to the live chat questions. We have one from CME for PC, who says, "Could mines be dropped by drones effectively? Could weight be a factor, potentially different, or modify the fuse to make good use of them?"
You're going to have to get a really big drone to carry one of those mines. So I feel like it's going to be largely impractical unless it was an R-18, and even then, those may not be able to carry it. So you would really have to find a drone that could first lift one of those things, and second, you would have to find a way to make it explode. And considering that mines are flat on two sides and largely aerodynamic, it would be very hard to make one where it could be used that way. But if there is a will, there is a way. And one thing we've seen by the Ukrainians is that they can make anything work. So it is definitely possible. It's just that it'd be very difficult to do. And it'll require some of the largest drones they have. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support and allowing us to answer that live chat. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
Oh, yes, thank you very much. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Joseph M. Sicca, who says, "Hi, I can't be fair every night. Still love you guys. I'm drunk." Well, Joseph, that explains a lot.
Well, Joseph...
but what you guys do every night is incredible, Hart.
And
I think the grammar might have suffered a little bit, but I got the point.
And thank you so much for the support, Joseph. You are drunk. You need to sleep. But thank you so much once again for the support and appreciating what we do. We appreciate you watching every night, even though you are a little drunk. And we hope that you've had a fun time watching, or maybe the alcohol made it even better. And so with that, thank you once again for the support. I hope that addresses the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Do you remember that a drinking game back in the day everybody was doing? They would take a shot when you said,
yes.
What was it? What?
And so with that.
What was the phrase? Yeah, and so with that. People were drinking themselves to death back in the day.
Yeah, people were getting liver poisoning. We had more alcoholics in the live chat than the Russians did at that point, and it was bad. People were dropping dead. We don't say that phrase a lot anymore. We replaced it a little bit. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $10 super chat from Wendy Pines, who says, Enforcer Matt, true or false? Sabotage explosions at Russian oil refineries and shopping malls is the work of the CIA, ? CIA and NATO ally spies behind recent wave of mysterious blasts. NATO.
I don't really know. I can't really confirm that for certain. We don't really know who's behind them, and to make any clear statements would be somewhat untrue to make, because we don't really know who it is. So unfortunately, I'd have to declare ignorance on that one, but if it was, I wouldn't doubt it. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that answers the question fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And up next, we have a £10 donation from Mallet.
Man, that's heavy.
Spelled M-A-L-L-I-T. Mallet. And thank you very much for that £10 donation from the UK. And Enforcer, what say you about that?
Where are you from, mate? Where are you from? I want to know where you're from. You're probably from England. But where in England? Are you from Hull? If you're from Hull...
England is their city.
England is my city. Are you from Hull, sir? If so, how are you alive? That's it. Are you?
Look at that river. It's looking all jank.
The
man.
Humber. All of the rivers coming out of Britain look like this, like the Severn down here. It's just that they're bringing all the silt out. Very, very, very good silt. It's great stuff. But also, if you look at the Mississippi River, we can't talk that much. The whole Mississippi River is brown, you know, so it's just river water. You know, it's just what it looks like. It's all silty and nasty looking. It probably is nasty, honestly. Look, Baton Rouge, and look, one of the biggest oil refineries in the world, right on the river. So if it ever has
Cancer
a problem,
Alley.
Yeah, if it ever has a problem, everyone downstream is going to get cancer, like the people in New Orleans. That's why your beignets always taste
remember
so...
It does that anyway. The people like living near these plants like have a higher risk of cancer than other people.
Oh yeah, that's true. It's true. And when you go down there, the sky when the sun sets, the sky has a totally different color. It looks like an oil slick up there at sunset, because of all the chemicals in the air. It's actually pretty crazy to think that people live down there. You know, especially seeing what they deal with. And you even feel like I don't know if this was just me, just knowing that it was Cancer Alley, but when you drive through there, you feel like you get a little film on you. I don't know if it was just me, Matthew, but it was like this odd feeling where you had to take a shower to get like this filmy feeling off of you.
And you feel like dirty, like driving through there or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know. People from here though, they were really nice. It was a nice place filled with nice people. But it's unfortunate to know that they have to live in the middle of this stuff. You know, it causes cancer, and they just have to live with it. But
They have a Costco out there. I didn't know that.
Where?
Right over there on the right.
Right on the right.
Down into the intersection of the interstate.
Oh hell, they do. Look at that. They have a Costco's down here. It's just like a big one. It looks like a small one.
I don't think there's such thing as a small Costco.
This one looks.
No, it's a
small.
full-sized one.
Yeah, it's a
that's a nice one.
Wow, this is like nicer than ours.
A lot of people were posing for pictures in Costco. This was a real nice one.
Well, wait a minute. Let's go to the one in Birmingham. There's only one in Birmingham, by the way, for a city of 1.5 million people in the metropolitan area. There's only one Costco's, but let's go there.
And it stays crowded.
Oh,
like it's a madhouse in there every day.
So there's Costco. It's actually as big as the other one, so they're all this size. So let's see the pictures of ours. Wow, they even have like better pictures of this one.
There's those famous lines. It's always like that every time.
Oh God, it's terrible. In case of our Europeans have never seen anything like this, this is what we call a superstore in America. This is like a wholesale superstore though, which is a little bit different. They just sell wholesale of everything. Everything is wholesale, massive amounts of stuff.
Wait a minute. Cardo says don't eat the hot dogs. Why should we not eat the hot dogs?
Dude, I eat the hot dogs. They're delicious.
Yeah, I eat the hot dogs too. What's wrong with the hot dogs? Is there something we need to know?
They're about to tell us it's made out of chicks. You know, like little chicks they throw in a grinder. And I'm gonna be like, oh great.
Oh.
You know, that's really gonna ruin my day if I find out it's made out of chicks. Also, here's what the...
You know, they got in trouble. Oh, my God. But, you know, they got in trouble a while back for, you know, the chicken situation. The rotisserie chickens being, like... The way they raised the chickens wasn't totally, like, right or something.
Well, that's with every chicken farm. People don't understand. To have the amount... To meet the volume of chicken needed in this country every day, we have to grow them like that. We have to raise them like that in those cramped, terrible conditions, and we also have to pump them up with hormones, because if we didn't do all those things, the price of chicken would go through the roof, because they would have to age a lot more. They would have to grow almost 3 times the amount of time that they normally do to get about half of the meat, and then by that point, you know, all the economics of it are thrown off, and chicken would just be a whole lot more expensive. And it's...
Oh hell no.
What did they say?
Oh, did you see the comments? Made out of everything, and then somebody said snouts and blank.
Oh man, but they're delicious. Oh,
now I've heard people say in the past that those hot dogs are made out of like anything they can get their hands on, like meat wise. But I tell you what, I didn't know that. They are juicy though. That snout does taste good.
That snout, you got to eat that snout. But I don't know. I mean, like a lot of hot dogs are made like that. We got the kosher ones because you could usually get some kind of assurance that it wasn't made out of everything with a kosher one. But they're still, I mean, they're so good. Oh man. Oh look, it's the River Chase Galleria. It's the free for all PvP pit. Nice. You know what? We're probably going to get a call or a cease and desist letter for saying that from the mall, but there's been shootings in this mall. It's not just me saying it, it's fact. It's hardcore fact in this mall. There's been enough shootings in here that this thing has become the shooting gallery. Oh, wow, look at that.
When was that here?
I don't know.
2017.
2017.
That's a Lego?
Yeah, it's Lego.
Oh, man. I wonder how much they would sell that for.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars, probably. That thing probably cost as much as a Mercedes car.
They must have built it in there, too. There's no way you could transport that.
I don't know. Maybe they did. All I know is that that's unbelievable. I've never seen anything like that before. I wonder how many... Anyways, we're about a rabbit hole on that thing. We need to move on to another picture. Look, look at these sad, dejected kids playing chess. Doesn't that look fun? I don't know why they look so sad. I loved chess when I was growing up.
It says hang 2 minute win. I'm assuming they mean like a pull-up bar.
Maybe? I don't know. Maybe there's like a whole bunch of events going on in the mall that day. But anyways, we need to move on. I'm showing y'all a little bit too much of Birmingham. Y'all can come here and find out for yourselves. It's a great town. Just avoid parts of it. But with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Nick Gaspy, who says, welcome back, Enforcer and Matt, and hello, LSA.
And also, thank you so much once again for the support, and thank you for welcoming us back. We're glad to be back. We love to be back, and I thank you so much once again for the support, and long live the Lee Spring Army. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from RoyCC07, who says, you should check minus Rus and click on the timeline button to compare the losses of tanks over the weekend.
Oh yeah, that is true. We could do that with minus Rus, but we've gone on there a lot. The one reason I don't really use them much anymore is I don't know where they're getting their wounded figures from for the infantry. So that's the reason why we don't really pull them up much anymore, but it's still a pretty good source by and large. Also, Miss Disa, you notice that it says day 260 here. I don't update this anymore right here because nobody read it. Like, you know, like the few who did, it helped out a little bit, but then they look at the map all the time. Everyone else didn't read it because some people would be like, what does the color coding mean? And it'll explain it here, so I just stopped updating it, and it's been this way since day 260. So, anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from Craig Platel, who says, Buckley has been around since 38, hosts other units. A&G and Navy, as well as Space Force, used to have A&G Hueys back in the 90s also.
And also, I thank you for the support and also sharing that with us. I would assume that the base had been around for a while. It's just crazy to think that now it's a purpose-built Space Force base. Buckley Space Force Base. Here we go. And also, someone said check out their dress uniform. Let's take a look at their uniform. Wait, is this the prototype? Hang on, wait a minute. Things are getting a little odd here. I need to find a good picture of it. Look, this is from the Buckley Space Force base. That's the only picture you show? You're showing and revealing a whole new prototype dress uniform, and that's all they show of it is this one picture. And this one. You hardly even get to see it. Here's a good picture of it. Okay, that, honestly, Matthew, that looks straight up from Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Look at this. Hang on, let me go find a picture. You'll see the similarity, Matthew. You'll see it. Right there. You see how the latches on the side? Literally the same!
Yeah, pretty much. It's pretty much a copy.
Yeah, it's just blue. Well, it's a very dark blue. Not that bad, actually. I kind of like the Star Trek movie uniforms. I thought they weren't that bad. But still, you would think you'd have a little bit more creativity than that. Anyways, with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support. And also letting us know about the Buckley Air Base, or Space Force Base. And with that, we're on to the next one.
When the Air Force was created in the United States, did we have like a lot of aircraft created by then?
Yeah. The Air Force was founded in 1947, if I'm correct. And before then, it had been the Army Air Corps. It was a part of the Army. And, of course, by 1947, we had thousands of bombers, B-17s, B-29s. We had thousands of fighter aircraft. So the Air Force just took everything that was in the Army Air Corps and controlled by the Army and just moved it over into a new branch, which was the Air Force.
See, that's what I don't understand about the Space Force. We really don't have, like, spacecraft yet that are capable of going anywhere rather than orbit, like, effectively and routinely. So it's like, isn't it a little, like, premature to have a Space Force?
Not quite. You got to remember that the Royal Air Force, the oldest Air Force in the world, was founded in 1918. And although the aircraft had been proven as a viable I guess you could say, weapon in the First World War, it was still in its infancy. You know, the first aircraft had only flown about 13 years before the Royal Air Force was founded as an independent branch. So it's not that far out there. You know, it's not crazy to say that the Space Force exists. And, you know, and a lot of countries already had one. Like the Russians have the Space Force. Let me go find it. Russian Space Force. Right here. They've had the Russian Space Forces for a while, ever since 1992. The French have the Air and Space Force. French Air and Space Force. Right here. So it's not that crazy of a concept. We're not actually the first one to have a Space Force. But we are, I guess you could say, kind of like setting the standard as making it like a straight up independent branch that's indistinguishable from, distinguishable from others, I guess you could say. But with that, I hope that answers the question, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have an $8 super chat from Sensor007 PSN, who says you should do merch with Igor. With a destroyer, Russian tank, and a QR code to send to the original video.
And you know, that's actually a smart idea, and I cannot confirm nor deny if we have something like that planned, but stick around and keep your eye out. So with that, we're on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Mohammed Bari, who says, "Hey, Enforcer Matt, what do you think about the Engels airbase attack?"
I think it was pretty neat to know. It sounds like the Russians shot the drone down, the Tu-141, but it still ended up taking out 3 crew, which is still pretty valuable in terms of the ground crew. So I would say not that bad. I thought it was pretty good, and maybe they can go for round 2. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that answers the question fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to Michael Hill for putting in a $4 donation, as well as Dupper Bob for putting in a 2, and Dubsy Dabster for putting in a 2 as well. And thank you all 3 for that support, and we do appreciate it very much. It helps to keep us running, like we always like to say. And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Mr. Diggs, who says, "I hope your year is a good one, without any fear."
Is that a threat?
I don't know. I just read it off that way because it kind of sounded like it. But Mr. Diggs isn't threatening. He's been around for a long time.
And I thank you so much, Mr. Diggs, for your support. And it will be a good year. I'll tell you that. It's been a good year. It will be a good year. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Mr. Diggs. I hope that addresses the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Raphael Harris, who says, "LSA for territorial integrity and justice for Russian crimes."
And thank you so much for the support. And I would say the Leaf Spring Army does stand behind those kinds of ideas. I think that it's pretty important to stand for the territorial integrity of countries, especially ones that we're supporting, and also ones that we're not even really directly supporting right now, because it keeps things, I guess you could say, balanced. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Trado, who says, "Most 4x4 capable truck to be sent to Ukraine, ? Is it the Hilux?"
The most capable 4x4, I couldn't really tell you, to be honest. I wouldn't really know. It could be, I mean, like, you know, you could say the Ford Raptor and some of the American larger pickup trucks could possibly be some of the most capable. I'm not really
If you're talking about a combination between reliability and capability, probably either the Land Cruiser or the Hilux. If you're talking about performance, you're going to be looking at a Raptor. And if you're talking about, let's see here, I guess, I don't really want to say nostalgia, but I don't know how else to describe it. Maybe a Land Rover, like the old Defender type.
I mean, maybe. Those are probably pretty good options. I feel like modern trucks could stand it well, but not too well, really, when you think about it. You know, like, you know, the Ford Raptor, like, from what I know, it's almost like a pretend truck. You know, it's really for, like, perfect.
No, it's a real truck.
No, I mean, like, I'm talking about, like, perfect, ideal paved conditions. It's not going to be handling, like,
no, man, that thing is designed to, like, climb over, like, piles of rocks.
You know, Matthew,
It is super capable.
You know how goofy that sounds? Where in the hell do you find in America just a pile of rocks? Like, where in the world is that? Like, can it handle mud or dirt? Like, I don't know why.
Yeah.
Why in the world does everyone in America, man, they always have an obsession with climbing rocks? What the hell are we? Like a mountain climber? Like, a Jeep is obsessed with climbing rocks? Ford Raptors?
It's fun.
Yeah, but where do you find them? Like, you can't find them anywhere. Like, let's go here to the Bridger Teton National Forest. Here's
Look at all those rocks. There's rocks
these
everywhere.
are pebbles. These are pebbles. Come
Well,
on.
the Raptor can definitely handle pebbles.
Oh, God. Help us all. Good Lord. Also, that's beautiful, by the way. That's gorgeous. But
Just punch in Ford Raptor off-road pictures, and you'll see.
But wait, Ford Raptor. Ford Raptor. Off-road. Images. All right, so this one.
Look at that. It's mudding.
That looks to be stuck, to be honest with you. That looks to be stuck.
That's not stuck.
Oh, climbing rocks.
Yeah,
Like,
see, it's climbing a rock.
Yeah, but look, they had to drive through like 5 miles of open plains to find some rocks. Like, you don't just run into large rocks on a normal basis.
You can jump these things too. They can go over jumps. There's a guy driving it right through the water. Look at that.
Yeah, I mean, but can a normal car do that? Like, our car could do that.
No. No, if you drove your car into that water, it would lock the engine up, hydrolock it.
Hell no, it wouldn't. No, man, now if you gun it, you just hydroplane across the thing and then crash.
If you gun it through, you'll definitely swamp the engine.
Look, here's more rocks. What is up with this? No one drives in these kinds of conditions. There are not that many rocks in the United States to make this a selling point.
So you know Area 51, right?
Yeah, but what you're going to get arrested.
Well, out there at Area 51, all of the security guards out there, the private security that they hire for the base, drives around in old generation Raptors because they're really capable and they handle the off-road conditions really well, even though it's a flat surface.
Yeah, we're just gonna leave it. We're just gonna leave it at this. We're rabbit holing. It's 12:17. We got to get to more questions, but you know, I guess the Hilux is decent. I don't know, but if you're climbing rocks, why? So with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and that was our last super chat. So of course, it's time to move on to our live chat questions. And up first, we have the Morse code decoders, Mark Hodges, and I believe CFA, WFTU, and BME as well. They said that the Morse message tonight reads, deck the halls with bounds of folly. Oi, 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 oi. Slava Ukraine.
And you got it correct. Y'all deciphered the Morse code message. The Ukrainians are decking those halls with the bounds of folly. Oi, 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 oi. Because I mean those people, they're just folly. They're full of follies, folly after folly, and then they go oi 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 as they're screwing up. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and y'all get it correct. Also, I see a lot of people saying there's rocks around y'all's places. Listen, I don't care. Kick rocks. I'm just playing. Y'all are right. There are rocks in some places, but look at Ukraine. And tell me that a rock climbing truck would work there. They're not going to be dealing with a lot of rocks or a lot of rubble, for that matter. Usually the streets are cleared of rubble because, you know, they might be able to climb the rubble, but the I-beam sticking out of it will puncture, or the rebar will puncture the tire, so they still got to clear it out anyways. What I'm talking about is like mud. Can it handle mud? Because if it could climb a rock, rocks are dry, and as long as you're not driving too fast over them, you got four-wheel drive, you can climb over rocks fine. But if you're in mud, if really bad mud, it doesn't really matter if the truck can climb a rock. It's not going to be able to get through the mud, probably. But I had to throw in that joke. Sorry, everyone. I wasn't being rude. I just had to throw in the joke of kicking rocks because I just saw it fit. But I hope y'all see what I'm saying. If y'all have a counter to that, I'd love to hear it because I'm not as experienced in off-roading as some of y'all probably are. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a super chat. This one is from Walter A. Lakota Jr., who puts in a $20 donation. He says his famous line, Aloha, the Enforcer and Enforcer Matt, and LSA from OG LSN Hawaiian fact, the tsunami that hit Hilo, Big Island, happened on April 1st, 1964, which is the result of an earthquake that happened in Anchorage, Alaska. Aloha all.
And thank you so much for the support, Walter A. Lakota. And I remember that tsunami. I wasn't alive for it, but it also wiped out some, I'm trying to think of it. Where the hell was this island? It was an island out here somewhere. It had a lighthouse on it. It wiped out pretty much everyone there and killed them in an instant. But I can't think of it. Dang it. The Atu Station. I think that was it. If I scroll down here. Hang on. I think this is it. Oh, look, they censored that.
What do you... isn't this where the, like, what's it called? The transmitter array is up here there, but I like to make conspiracy theories about?
I don't know. I don't know about that specifically, to be able to talk on it. But there was one island somewhere that got affected by the same earthquake, I believe, and it literally just wiped out everything. Like, it just wiped out the whole Coast Guard outpost. I think it killed 24 of the Coast Guard crew that were there. It was horrendous. And that's also pretty crazy to hear it reached all the way down to Hawaii. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Walter, and also sharing with us another really cool fun fact. And with that, we are on to the next one. And also, thank you for being our in-house Hawaii guy who tells us about this stuff. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have and also, yeah, everybody's saying the name of it in the chat. I'm kind of scared to say it because you know how censorship works around here, around these parts, on this particular platform. And I feel like if I said that they might come and start scrutinizing the channel. So I'm going to avoid saying it. But y'all know what I'm talking about.
You don't want to scrutinize me, you great supine protoplasmic invertebrate jellies.
And I know it's a real thing, but you know, there's a lot of conspiracy theories about what its true purpose is. Nobody really knows for a fact, but trust me, if the government's running it, it's not as like advanced as you think it is. But anyways,
running everything up there on Windows XP.
Yeah, it's probably like the most mundane thing ever, and everybody's like giving the government way too much credit for being geniuses. But anyways, up next we have a $5 super chat from Shanna Law Nerd, who says, LSA since day 26 and happy holidays to all. Buy 2 rubber ducks for the Turkish bath and have a live chat question because I love my chat bros.
And thank you so much for the support. It helps this channel to keep running, and also we will put the rubber duckies in the Turkish bath. I think that's a really cool idea. I like it. And also, thank you so much once again for helping us keep this channel running. It means a lot to us. So, with that, let's get to the live chat.
All right, and the live chat question is going to go to Cliff West. He says, "Have you heard about bank runs in Russia?"
I have not.
And the second person has asked about that.
Yeah, I'm going to have to declare ignorance on that because I have not heard about that at the moment. And so with that, I hope I answered that live chat fairly well. Sorry, I don't have a lot of information right now to go off of. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, Shanna, thank you very much for that support. But anyways, up next, we have a $10 super chat from Miss Disa, who says, what are your plans for end-of-year live stream or video message?
It's probably going to be pretty mundane, especially compared to Christmas. We're probably just going to run a normal live stream, and when the time flips over here in our time zone, we'll probably go, Happy New Year! Or something like that, and we'll probably play it for all the acquaintance be, and then get copyrighted. So
I don't know though, that CNN New Year's night thing is always a real competition.
Oh man, it really is. People just hanging out, like the reporters hanging out in the street, dog drunk on TV. That's really hard to compete with.
Yeah, I've always wanted to see these very honest reporters get drunk.
Yeah, I always wanted to see someone who was already hardly likable get drunk and then be even more unlikable somehow by getting drunk. Usually you would think that people would be a lot more funny drunk, or at least sauced, but somehow every year they always just become more unfunny. Like they're almost unwatchable on New Year's Eve. I don't know. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
I think last year one of them fondled somebody live on TV when they were drunk too, and they sort of just ignored that and brushed it under the rug.
You remember that guy on CNN who was, curing the meats on stream, and he ended up getting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You know, that was a shining moment of the network.
He came back, and then they fired him a second time.
They were like, just in case we didn't do it good enough the first time, let's do it a second time. Oh man.
Yes, and that was so shameful too. They came back and drug him through the mud. They said, "How do you feel about what you did?" "I feel so shameful. I'm so ashamed." And then they're like, he stuck around for a month or two longer, and then, nope, you're gone again. Bye-bye. And sent him home after they humiliated him for a second time.
Yeah, I mean that's true. Also, so Andy actually called out the exact reporter I'm talking about. Yes, it was him, and he's already, in my opinion, personality-wise, I don't really like the guy too much. And you know, at least his personality he shows on air, and then him getting drunk on air made it even worse. Um, I gotta tell you, I don't know how. I don't know. I really don't know how. I have been around sauce people. I've been around drunk people. They usually become funnier. He became less funny. I don't understand how. But with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $2 super chat from Dubsy Dabster, who says, New Year's drinking stream, pineapple whiskey.
And also, thank you for the support, Dubsy Dabster. And we don't drink, and I'm not old enough to drink. And I don't think I would want to do that on stream, because one thing I would hate to do is kind of, I don't know if I'm a lightweight because I haven't really drank a lot.
You're a lightweight.
Probably. I don't know if I would probably lose my facilities on stream because of that, and I don't want that to happen because I feel like that's a very bad image to put out. I honestly, in my opinion, I think drinking is more so for, it's not supposed to be a public thing. It's supposed to be a very private thing that you do with friends out in the middle of nowhere, or you do at your house. I'm not really into the idea of public drunkenness because I feel like it's a bad image, especially for me wanting to get into politics into the future. I don't want people to actually know me as a drunken reveler in public. You know, that's not really a good thing in my opinion for the future. But with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support.
All right, and up next, we have a question from, let's see here, Kat Nico, who says, do you think that if Putin pulled out now, he could salvage Russian rule for at least all of Russia?
He probably could. We've already made it to the live chats?
Well, yeah, we've been in the live chats.
What? Nani? But anyways, with that in mind, we're going to answer questions until 12:35 local time or 1:35 Eastern time, and then we'll round out the stream. So to answer this one, I think if he pulled out now, he probably could. But he's going to keep this thing going until the government falls apart. That's one thing that we've seen for certain. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one is going to go to Brian DeLauro, who says, when you think about it... Wait a minute, hold on, let me start over. When you think about it, the Soviet Union suffered the most in World War II.
When you think about it, you're right.
That wording really threw me off.
But if you really think about it, they suffered because of their own incompetence. Again, if they didn't do anything right. I could go down that rabbit hole forever. They didn't have any officers, experienced officers. They didn't have any proper logistics. They didn't have any logisticians. They didn't do anything properly, again. And that's why they suffered the most. You'll see that out of that whole war, 5 years, the British fought the Germans nonstop. They fought them in 1939. They fought them during the Phony War. They fought them during the Battle of France. They retreated to the island. They then fought in North Africa, in Italy, in Greece. They fought in France, and then in Germany, and also in the Benelux area. They fought over all of it. And they only lost about 450,000 people, civilians included. And the Russians lost 30 million. You know, like, I don't know how in the hell you can do that badly, considering that everyone else in the world was able to quash the Russians like it was, well, to quash the Germans like it was a cakewalk. It was sad, you know, really. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And the next one is going to go to David Myers, who says, several people are saying Russia going to go hard in Ukraine and China to take Taiwan and then Japan. Opinion about World War III.
Man, if the Chinese could take Japan, that would be something. Like, I don't know, they would never be able to take Japan because the United States is there, and we would protect Japan tooth and nail. That would be something we would immediately go to war for because they're one of the largest economies in our sphere. So I don't think they'd ever take Japan. They probably won't ever take Taiwan either because Taiwan will just blow up the TSMC factories, because if they're going down, everyone's going down with them, including the Chinese. And so I don't think they would do that either. And everyone's been talking about that ever since the beginning of this war, and it's never happened, and the Chinese are just doing their typical posturing as normal. The Russians are not going to double down in Ukraine because they've already double dipped the chip so many times, the chip is gone. So I don't think they'll be doing that either. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
Saw somebody in the live chat say, "I want to chew on your neck." Okay.
Who, me? Are you some kind of a vampire or something?
Oh, actually, JD Mako said it, and he put the vampire signal behind it. Behind it.
I want to suck your, blood. Suck your blood.
Oh, God.
Oh, man. And if you know, every time I do a joke like that, I just got to say, if you know, you know. Matthew knows. But with that, we're on to the next.
All right. So with that being said, take a shot. We have a question from Relentless, who says, "Can we talk about what's happening in Asia? China with Taiwan, Japan, Philippines, India, North Korea, and South Korea."
Oh, Lord, that's literally all of Asia, pretty
now,
much.
Now, I will say I heard today that Taiwan upped their mandatory military service to a year.
That is true. They actually did do that. They're doing that just in case things kick off, and that also may be showing that things are heating up. I can't cover them all, because that would take a lot of time. A lot of these are completely isolated incidents, like what's going on in between India and China, and India and Pakistan and China are totally different instances. Like, you would have to go and explain those like a TED Talk each. So I can't go into all of them because that would take too much time. But with Taiwan, it appears that they are getting ready for something. It's just that no one really knows if it's going to happen. And it's most likely not going to happen. But for the Taiwanese, especially seeing what happened in Ukraine, it's better to be safe than sorry, and so they are preparing. And I also believe they're upping their budget. The Japanese have also massively boosted their budget over the past few weeks, because, you know, it's good. It's good to have a big military these days. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And also, according to what I heard, the Japanese, at least on paper, are going to have like one of the largest military budgets in the world. It may even be bigger than China's, but I'm not really sure on that. I'll have to go back and check. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And I think this is going to be our last one of the night. And this one is going to go to, let me look through here real quick. I think I've already covered that one. Let's see. Azure Skies. The last question goes to Azure Skies, who says, "Do you think that's because the Russians have run out of competent officers and all that are left are corrupt, stupid, or officers appointed by nepotism?"
That's assuming that there were ever competent Russian officers in the first place, which there were never. To be honest with you, they never had competent officers. There's always been a massive load of corruption in the Russian military. That's how a lot of these officers make their money, is through the corruption. So I think the fact is that the Russian Federation, being as bloated as it is and already corrupt as it is, never had competent officers from the start, and we're now seeing how bad the corruption really was, to the point that the Russian army is inept because of it. The corruption has eaten the army like a virus, where it doesn't even exist anymore. It's just a dead shell. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. And with that, it's the end of the stream, my children. I thank you all so much once again for watching this stream. If you did enjoy, make sure to hit that like button, because of course it helps out this channel a lot. Hit the subscribe button too. If you're here in the question segment, you must really like it. And so make sure to hit it, because, you know, it helps us to grow. It helps the Lee Spring Army to keep on living. It helps us to keep on spreading the word. And so with that, thank you all so much once again for watching. I will see you all tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the war in Ukraine. Good night, everyone. Take care, stay safe, and Slava Ukraini. Yeehaw!
Yes. The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.
Усміхнеться доля, згинуть наші вороги. вороженьки, як роса на сонці, запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу.